Chapter 14:18. Bojo listened to the little princess's arrogant words. She wagged her tiger tail and behaved like a loyal dog. On the other hand, Chin-mo didn't want to listen to the coughing anymore. He asked someone to prepare a bowl of pear soup. He watched as the little tiger drank a bowl. Then, she really entered the state of rest. This time, before Chin-mo entered the bathroom, he said to Bojo, "Don't come in." Bojo looked at the back view that was filled with rejection. She reached out and touched her ears. She thought about it seriously. Her little princess was shy again. She would restrain herself today. She really wanted to go in and bathe her little princess. But she was sick now. It was easy for her to infect others. But there was something she had to remind him. "Momo, your body is weak. Be careful when you bathe. Don't bathe for too long. You will be out of breath like yesterday." She still dared to mention yesterday. Ha! When Chin-mo heard this before he closed the door, he tightened his grip on the white scarf. He was too lazy to take another deep breath, so he slammed the door shut and locked it. His handsome face was as elegant and handsome as ever. This time, he didn't fill the bathtub with water. Instead, he turned on the shower. When he came out of the bathroom, he had already changed into his pajamas. In Bojo's eyes, the little princess's pajamas were more pleasing to the eye. Her little old axe was a little too exaggerated. It wasn't like the little princess's pajamas. They were clean and didn't have any extra patterns. Chin-mo used the scarf to wipe his hair. He was still young. Although he was already used to being stared at, he still felt uncomfortable when people looked at him from head to toe and from his tail to his head. In the end, they looked at his side profile with a pair of big eyes. He hadn't experienced this before. After all, when other people looked at him, they would sneak peeks at him. Children would not be as shy as adults. But the word shy was obviously not suitable for a certain little tiger. Chin-mo placed the scarf down and turned his head. He was about to speak. The little tiger, Jo, spoke before him. "Momo, you don't have to be shy. I will take responsibility." "Take responsibility? What responsibility?" Chin-mo frowned again. He wanted to warn her not to be mischievous. She should sit there obediently and not speak if she could. Why did she say she would take responsibility? "Yesterday, I didn't know you were different from me and saw you naked. I called my dad and he said that the best way is to be responsible for you." "I agree, I can't be a heartless man and I can't take advantage of you." "That's right." Chin-mo's eyes lit up. "That's right. I'm not going to be a heartless man and I can't take advantage of you." After hearing this explanation, Chin-mo's little face became even colder. He took out a small blanket from the closet and threw it directly on the little tiger's head. This was the best way to shut her up. Who knew that he had underestimated the little tiger's mischievous behavior? Chapter 14:19. After all, you're so weak. After all, you're so weak. After all, you're so weak. This sentence echoed in Chin-mo's mind 3 times. He looked at the little tiger head that was exposed. He wanted to pull her up and throw her out. But she was still counting the mistakes she had made with her little fingers, coughing from time to time. "Little Bojo, are you an idiot?" Chin-mo tried to hold it in, but the only thing he could say was coldness. The little boy Bojo didn't understand how she was stupid. Chin-mo glanced over. He was wearing his pajamas and looked noble. "Why are you feeling pity? Can you kiss me casually just because you don't have a cold? How can you be so optimistic? Didn't I tell you yesterday to stay 1 meter away from me? Didn't you tell me to stay so far away from you so that I wouldn't kiss you?" Bojo seemed to have understood something. Her eyes widened. Chin Mo arched a brow. Why else? Oh. Bojo was disappointed for a second. Then she said, anyway, I will be responsible for you. Besides, Momo, you've misunderstood. I'm usually very reserved. I'm so passionate because I want you to know my sincerity. Chin Mo turned his head. No need. No need for what? Bojo scratched her face. She didn't understand. Chin Mo looked at her. His gaze was calm. I don't need you to be responsible. Also, heartbreaker isn't used to describe girls. How did you learn Chinese? I didn't learn it well. Bojo felt a little guilty. Those words were like pictures. There were too many gestures. Sometimes she remembered them but she didn't know where to use them. But that wasn't right. Her dad had said it over the phone. Being irresponsible meant being a heartbreaker. Anyway, Bojo didn't care if it was used to describe boys or girls. She would never be a heartless man. The current situation was that the little princess didn't want her to be responsible. Her dad also said that she could be tough but she couldn't force others. Little Bojo thought about it. In the end, she looked up and wagged her tail. Momo, tell me when you want me to be responsible. That situation would never happen. At that time, Chin Mo had thought that way. Moreover, he really didn't want to discuss this kind of thing with a little tiger. It would make him seem very childish. His gaze swept over. Seeing that she was still curled up on the sofa, his brows furrowed once more. I'm not asking you to go to the bed. The sofa was very close to the window. Didn't this idiot know that there would be wind on this side? I haven't showered yet. I'll go after I shower. Ever since the little princess had come out of the shower, she had been smelling his scent. It was so fragrant and so good. She wanted to take a shower too. Chin Mo watched her torment. Anyway, he understood that it was impossible for her to settle down. Half a minute passed. Momo. Chin Mo was sitting on a chair with a book in his hands. No matter how late it was, he would read a few books before going to bed. This was his habit. Chin Mo watched as the little tiger tugged at his sleeve with her claws. Her eyes were black and she looked very obedient, but in fact, the sparkle in her eyes indicated that she was going to be naughty again. Both of them looked to be 5 years old, and their heights were about the same. In comparison, Chin Mo was 3 centimeters shorter than Bojo. Chapter 14:20. Hence, the aloof young Master Chin didn't want to stand up. Which boy would be happy that he was shorter than a little tiger? This was one of the reasons why he asked her to stay away from him. But Bojo didn't know. If she wanted to shower, she had to take off her clothes first. Now that Momo was here, she couldn't just roll around and take off her clothes like she did the last time. This wasn't good. It would cause Momo's misunderstanding of her to deepen. After all, she was still very shy and reserved. But she couldn't open the zipper behind her. This was the disadvantage of having short arms. She had jumped for a long time just now, but she still couldn't pull the zipper to the end. At home, she would either roll around and take it off or her mother would help her take it off. Today, she could only trouble her future pet. Help me pull this down. As Bojo spoke, she turned her small body and obediently wagged her tail. The zipper was pulled down halfway. Since it was a clumsy little axe pajamas, no one would be able to tell if they didn't look carefully. Now, because of her action, Chin Mo also saw the fair and tender little back. Chin Mo also saw the fair and tender little back. Suddenly, his ears turned red and he tilted his head. Little Bojo. What is it? Bojo turned back and saw the little prince with a thin layer of pink on his face. He was extremely cute. He couldn't help but reach out and hug the person's waist. He said angrily, "Momo, you're shy again. Don't be shy." Asterisk bang. Asterisk the veins on Chin Mo's forehead were completely broken. He watched as the little tiger picked him up from the chair, wobbled, and put him down. His breath was completely stuck in his chest. "Little Bojo." Bojo scratched her ears. I'm here." Chin Mo looked at her and didn't want to speak. Which boy would like to be carried around by a girl? His dignity as a boy was really, Chin Mo adjusted his breathing. Again and again, until the little face returned to its cold and noble appearance. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. It's such a simple logic. You should know that in the future, don't let a man help you with your zipper, even if you're a child. When Chin Mo said this, he didn't sound like an old man. It was probably because his face was too good-looking. Bojo nodded as though she was being lectured. She continued, "I know, but Momo, you're not like other boys. It's okay for you to help me zip up. We're going to sleep together in the future." "Who slept with you?" Chin Mo pressed his throbbing temples. Then, he looked at her tiger pajamas that were about to collapse. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted, and he shouldn't have let this person sleep here. He didn't know if it was too late to throw her back. But he had heard the conversation just now. There was no one at the Bo family's side. Her cough had not gone away, and she was so clumsy that she could not even walk properly. Bojo didn't know what her pet was thinking about. She poked him with her fingers, her back itching. Chin Mo's gaze landed on her when he saw her movements. It was probably because of the material of her pajamas. After the zipper was unzipped, it would prick his hand. Therefore, her fair little back was a little red after being pricked. Chapter 14:21. Okay. She would be obedient when she needed to be. Little Joe always followed this principle to the end. Chin Mo lowered his lids. Once he decided to do something, he wouldn't be awkward anymore. Like a mature adult, he didn't just help Bojo with the zipper, he also removed the hood from her pajamas. Because he was so close, he could smell the sweet milk scent on the little tiger. A child would always be a child. While Chin Mo was deep in thought, he completely neglected the fact that he was also a child. After unzipping the zipper, Bojo could go to the bathroom and remove the little tiger pajamas herself. She was especially serious when she showered. At the same time, she thought about whether she had redeemed her image in the little princess's heart after today. In conclusion, it should be considered a success. As little Bojo thought about it, she splashed some shampoo on her head. The white foam accidentally flowed into her eyes. She used her little hands to rub them and started to wash again. It was a manly way of washing. Young Master Chin didn't see her washing. If he had seen it, he would have corrected her. After the shower, Bojo looked even fairer. She didn't let go of the little keyboard in her hands. Her hair was wet and looked very naughty when she shook it. There was even a lock of hair that was dyed silver sticking out. She looked like a cat that had just been scooped out of the water and hadn't had time to clean its fur. There would always be a cat that wanted to dress up as a little tiger. This was the perfect example. Chin Mo glanced over. In the end, his gaze landed on the hair that was dripping with water. This time, the person didn't go under the blanket. Chin Mo knew the reason clearly. Yesterday, because he had spoken, she had been afraid to disturb him. Hence, she had slept like that. With this thought, all of Chin Mo's impatience disappeared. It was obvious that the little tiger didn't know how to dry her hair. She held onto a towel and rubbed her head randomly. She coughed from time to time and hummed a tune. In the end, Chin Mo couldn't stand it anymore. Come here. When Bojo heard this word, she was confused. Then, she walked over with a confused expression. Nemo didn't say anything. He took the white towel over. His aura was cold. It was a deterrent. Children are like that. Perhaps, sometimes, they might not necessarily listen to adults. But when he met someone of the same age who was colder than him and couldn't see through him, he would subconsciously listen to him. Young Master Qin's aura had never been a joke since he was young. In the military compound, no matter how much those naughty kids liked to cause trouble, they would subconsciously restrain themselves in front of him. That was why all the grandfathers in the courtyard called him the Child King. Of course, one couldn't just rely on one's temperament. There was a certain amount of fist power in it. Nemo wasn't the kind of person who wouldn't fight. It was normal for boys to behave this way. But his style had always been different from hers. Bojo was convinced. It was the kind of coldness that emanated from the inside out after one hit that made people not dare to stab him again. This was the voice of a brat from a certain military compound. Nemo had never imagined that there would be a day when he, the king of children, would have to take care of a child. After he took the towel, he thought of something else. Chapter 14:22. When Nemo realized this, his fingers paused decisively. Then he said, "Sit there." Bojo didn't understand what the little princess was thinking. She hugged the little keyboard and sat at the designated spot. Her head was covered with a towel. Following that, a very gentle force was exerted. That kind of strength could easily make people drowsy. Coupled with the fragrance of the shower gel, it made him feel even more comfortable. Bojo hugged the little keyboard and wore her pajamas. The way she allowed him to wipe her hair was very adorable. But life depended on one's skin. Bojo wouldn't give up any chance to make a move. When Nemo wiped her hair, she played with the corner of his shirt. When she was discovered, she met his cold eyes. Then she smiled, revealing her little canine teeth. She lowered her head and continued playing. Nemo wasn't going to play tricks with this little tiger on this matter. In any case, she had already done things that were worse than that. Halfway through, the person in front of him coughed even more violently. Even her breathing became unstable. Nemo thought for a moment and fed her a lozenge. After taking the medicine and taking a shower, she could officially climb into bed. Bojo was a little sleepy. She probably wasn't feeling well. She really couldn't sleep. When she saw the little princess take a blanket to the sofa, she felt a little depressed. Although she had expected that the little princess wouldn't like to sleep with her, she didn't think that he would like to sleep with her. But when she saw this, she still felt that she hadn't tried hard enough. Once she recovered, she would force herself on him. She couldn't do it now. She might infect the little princess. Bojo thought about this and decided to hug her little keyboard to sleep. Nemo lay on the sofa. There was only one wall lamp left in the entire bedroom. It was still snowing outside. When the owl flapped its wings, it would always move the snow on the Christmas tree. Occasionally, there would be the sound of a dog barking outside. These sounds had a hypnotic effect. But anyone who had a cold or fever would know this. Fever was never something that could be cured in a day. Especially a child. Moreover, Bojo was obviously suffering from a fever. Otherwise, she wouldn't keep coughing. In reality, she wouldn't be able to sleep well. Bojo realized this too. That was why she hugged the little keyboard and tried not to cough. It would disturb Momo's sleep. Just as Bojo was thinking about this in a daze, a fair little hand landed on her forehead. After feeling the slight heat, her cold little face was even colder than before. It must be a little fever. Fortunately, it was not a high fever. Nemo walked to the side and brought a cup of warm water over. He knew that the little tiger wasn't asleep, so he reached out and pulled her up. Momo. Bojo's eyes were still wide. Chinamo placed the cup in front of her mouth and said only one word, drink. Bojo lowered her head, her stomach rumbling. After she finished drinking, he gave her some more medicine and used his left hand to touch her forehead again. Bojo was very obedient. Chinamo glanced at the things in her arms. The keyboard is cold. If I don't hug something, I won't be able to sleep. Bojo said whatever was on her mind. Momo, why don't you let me hug you? Chapter 14:23. Her plan was exposed. Bojo felt a little regretful. She changed to another object but the effect was the same. He probably noticed her discomfort. Chinamo asked casually, can't sleep? Her voice was a little muffled. She probably wanted to cough. Chinamo walked over and poured another glass of water. But this time, other than water, he took a book from the bookshelf. That book was the one he read every day. Bojo recognized the page. The little princess had been reading it yesterday. Move over a little. Chinamo stood beside the bed. His expression didn't change much. But when Bojo heard these words, she instantly became lively. She moved her small body to the left. The space wasn't just a little. After she finished this action, she promised seriously, Momo, don't worry. Even if we sleep together, I won't touch you like I did yesterday. Don't be afraid. Chinmo's hand that was lifting the thin blanket tightened. He looked up and gave her 2 words. Shut up. Bojo was very happy. She didn't care about the little princess's resistance at all. She understood that he was shy. If Chinmo knew that this little tiger attributed everything to his shyness, the veins on his forehead would probably rupture again. But fortunately, Bojo was still obedient sometimes. He laid on the bed with his big eyes and his small face like an angel's, looking at people with a fierce look on his face. Chinamo leaned against the head of the bed and opened the book 1001 Nights in his hands. His melodious and cold male voice rang out. There was a little childishness in it. It was said that in ancient times, on an island between ancient India and China, there was a kingdom called Sazan. The king was called Shinuya. Every day, King Shinuya would marry a woman and spend the night in the palace. But every day, when the rooster sang, he would cruelly kill the woman. Children loved to listen to stories. To Bojo, the things that her father did were treated as stories. But Mr. Bo was too busy so he didn't have much time to tell stories. To be precise, this was the first time someone specially read her a bedtime story. At first, Bojo was in a daze. But soon, as she listened, her coughs lessened. All her attention was focused on the little princess's side profile and the fascinating story. Time passed bit by bit with the flow of the moonlight. The 2 of them were different from the others, probably because they were too similar. No one would read him a bedtime story. He looked like a little prince, yes. He was a lonely little prince. Every night, she would read and sleep alone. Although there was still no one to tell him a bedtime story. However, the little heater lying beside him and listening to him with her head tilted to one side made him feel that there was nothing wrong with letting her come over once in a while. The sound of reading continued. He had just read the 3rd story of the 1001 stories. There were already people on the 1st floor. That person was none other than Mr. Bo, who was wearing a black trench coat with a bouquet of roses pinned on it. Originally, he was here to bring his little Jill back. Grandpa gestured for him to listen to the noises upstairs. Chapter 14:24. Grandpa smiled too. I heard from the butler that my grandson knew there was no one in the Bo family, so he specially asked him to send supper over. This morning, it was funny. He was a little unhappy that your little tiger wasn't around. Mr. Bo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. No matter what he did, there seemed to be an uneasy aura around him. That's good. There have been many things recently. I'm assured that she is with you. Grandpa rarely knew what he was doing. He asked, that's why you didn't go back to the castle. Ah. Mr. Bo flicked the cigarette ash with his long and slender fingers. He suddenly smiled. I'm not going back because I enjoy living off a woman. Of course, Mr. N won't understand. After all, my wife is too capable. Old Master N felt that it was enough to have such a friend despite the difference in age. He didn't feel ashamed of living off a woman. Instead, he felt proud. Speaking of which, he hadn't been active for a long time. Recently, he started again. It seemed like it wasn't peaceful outside. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed in such a place. It was probably because he wanted to protect his family. After all, he was no longer the king who came and went alone. This man was a legend who could shake many industries. However, he was raised as a little puppy at home. No, that wasn't right. The only person who would treat him as a little puppy was Joe's mother. Mr. Bo understood what Grandpa meant by his gaze. However, he didn't care. He left behind a sentence. I'll come and fetch my little Lord Joe tomorrow. Then, he disappeared into the boundless night. However, even though he was standing under the streetlight, he could still see the reflection on the second floor. The two little people weren't close to each other, but they were on the same bed. Mr. Bo smiled lightly. It was rare for his little Lord Joe to like someone so much. However, the kid from the Chin family was quite capable. He knew how to read stories to make children happy. He had never told his little Lord Joe fairy tales before. Mr. Bo stretched out his hand and flicked the cigarette butt into the rubbish bin in the courtyard. When he raised his lids, he realized that the lights in the house were turned on. He smiled. He was prepared to walk 2 rounds outside to disperse the smell of smoke before entering. First, he had to make sure that he didn't smell so bloody. Mr. Bo's legs were long. When he moved in the night, he was like an ancient night walker, landing silently. Soon, he changed into a new set of clothes in the basement. When he reappeared in the living room, he was wearing a pure white t-shirt with casual cotton-padded pants and a pair of glasses. The way he dressed made him look like a college student. Her temperament was outstanding and clear. In addition, this person was too coquettish. That's right, she was acting coquettishly. Because at the moment he appeared, Yi Xuan's eyes widened. He put on a sleepy expression, reached out his hand, and hugged the back of the woman who was wearing a business suit and was making medicine in front of the kitchen counter from behind. He put his chin on her shoulder naturally, sniffed the nice fragrance, and dragged out his voice lazily. Why did you come back so late today? Both Lord Joe and I have no food to eat. Being hugged by him, the figure's face was still a little red. They had been married for so long. But for some reason, he was still the same as when he first met this person. It was probably because the other party was 3 years younger than him. Therefore, whenever they were intimate, she would always feel numb all over and take advantage of the other party. Chapter 1425. Isn't there a nanny? As a female CEO who was good at handling company affairs, she was always exceptionally patient when facing her lover. She wasn't as cold as the rumors said, but her temperament was still there. When she turned her face, her figure was very beautiful. Mr. Bo didn't move his hand away. He seemed to know that she was uncomfortable, but his breath still lingered on her snow-white neck. The nanny doesn't cook well. As expected, the figure trembled. I'll cook you some porridge. I don't want to eat porridge now. The hint was probably too obvious because his slender fingers were already on the button of her suit. With a smile, his voice was a little deep. Joe isn't here today. She couldn't resist that kind of temptation. Even if someone said that the person in that family wasn't as simple as he looked. She still couldn't resist. And he was like a little puppy in front of her, always making her comfortable. Only in this kind of situation would he show his ruthless side. When she realized that she was being carried and placed on the kitchen counter, the temperature in the room was already very high. Everything seemed to be indescribable. Only her heartbeat could be heard. And the feeling that she couldn't control it anymore. She didn't even have time to ask where he went today. She was brought into the entanglement of his whole body. Probably because the two of them didn't know each other through dating. Hence, even now. Sometimes, she still couldn't let go. But the person younger than her didn't allow her to let go. He always thought of ways to make her lose her calmness. The sound of the button falling on the floor was very loud. This always made people feel ashamed. When the numbness hit her, she felt that the person was ridiculously mature. How could he be a little puppy? It was probably because the first time they met, the impression was too deep. She picked him up and brought him home. He was raised by her at home. It was as if it had naturally become her possession. From the time they met to the time they got married, it had only been 3 days. She had never asked if he was willing. Now that her daughter was already 4.5 years old, it seemed a little inappropriate to ask such a question again. But why was the person in front of her getting younger? On the other hand, she was already 3 years older than him. She was about to get old. She didn't know why, but he didn't seem to see it. Was it because young people had more needs? Thinking of this, it was inevitable that his thoughts would drift. He was unhappy that she wasn't paying attention. He bent down and bit her collarbone. Mrs. Bow, is it because the temptation outside is too great that you can't even pay attention when you go home? Shouldn't she be the one asking him this? He was still a graduate student. She had seen how hot the girls in the university were when she had driven to pick him up the last time. Those people didn't seem to mind that her Joe was still on top of his head. They say men with children are more attractive. Others said that it was impossible for him to have a child at his age. He really didn't look like a father. She still remembered the big and small pair sitting on the steps of the university, looking at her with the same expression. Their faces were full of pity, as if she would be a heinous villain if she stood them up again. 80% of Joe's personality was inherited from him. She also knew that when those hot girls from the university saw her picking him up, they thought she was his sister. However, she had never told him about this. After all, young graduate students were more likable. But he seemed to be very busy recently. Looking at the face in front of him that was obviously not in the right state, Mr. Bone narrowed his eyes and the strength in his hands increased. She still wanted to struggle. Don't, clothes, there are many of these clothes at home. When their breaths were really hot. It was still snowing outside. In the darkness, only their body temperature kept rising. Her entire body was covered in a thin layer of sweat after being tortured by him. He pushed her long hair away from her face and allowed her hands to wrap around his neck. His gaze was as deep as the night outside. Honestly speaking, when would his wife stop thinking about age? He was younger than her and it wasn't something he wanted. But in her eyes, he always seemed to be different. Mr. Bow laughed in a low voice and carried the exhausted beauty up horizontally. He returned to his little puppy image. The weather outside only cleared up the next day. When the sun shone down, everything seemed to be full of life. The European-style courtyard was always trimmed beautifully. There would definitely be lawns and trees. There would also be a white fence. There were green plants climbing on one side of the wall. Along with the sunlight, they formed fragmented silhouettes. Chinamo stretched out his hand to block, but he still felt that it was dazzling. This made him look down instinctively. He didn't expect to see a white and tender sleeping face. When a certain little tiger slept, she really looked like a little angel. Her eyelashes were very black and long. Each of them was distinct. When they fell down, they could even fall on her face. Her cheeks were chubby. Her mouth was slightly open and she bit her thumb. She was very mischievous as she moved her thumb. Not only that, one of her hands was placed on his waist. She looked as though she was protecting him. Chin Mo took a deep breath. Did this little tiger think that she was taller than him? Was that why she was hugging him like this? After calming his expression, he wanted to lift the small blanket on them and get off the bed. But the moment his fingers moved, he heard her call, Momo. She didn't wake up. She had called out Momo unintentionally. Maybe she had dreamed of something. But that soft and childish voice made Chin Mo's heart soften, which he shouldn't have. He didn't wake her up. Instead, he stretched out his hand and placed it on her forehead. The two of them were very close to each other. They could touch each other just by raising their hands. For Chin Mo, he had never been so close to someone of the same age. After testing the other party's temperature, he turned his face away. He didn't know why he fell asleep in such a position last night. No matter what, he couldn't let this little tiger know. It was a pity for our young Master Chin. Before he got to know a certain little tiger, young Master Chin never knew what a dark history was. But now, when he thought of the difference in their height, the fact that he was carried out of the bathtub by a little tiger yesterday, and the fact that the other party had seen him as a girl because of his appearance, Chin Mo couldn't help but narrow his eyes. When he got up, he felt that his throat was a little uncomfortable. He loosened the collar of his pajamas and planned to wash up. Chapter 14:26. Together. Chin Mo's frown deepened when he heard this. He turned his head and saw the little tiger climbing up from the bed. She bent her legs and held onto her little keyboard with one hand. She was rubbing her eyes with the other. She looked like she was about to jump down. Chin Mo didn't want to take a deep breath anymore. Instead, he reminded her calmly, "Little Bojo, you're a girl and I'm a boy. Tell me, how are you going to pee with me?" "MH?" That tone was definitely not too happy. Bojo sobered up instantly. She paused her claws and smiled. "I forgot again. Momo, don't be angry. I know how to whistle. I can stand outside the door and whistle for you." Chin Mo turned his head and smiled coldly. Then, he stuffed her into the blanket and said, "Stay here." What a joke. Someone was whistling outside. Who could come out easily? He had also said that the only reason he could tolerate this little tiger was because she would listen to whatever he said. When Chin Mo finished washing up and came out, Bojo was still on the bed. She was probably too bored from waiting and was doing somersaults. When she saw that he was done, she rolled like a tiger and straightened her body. Chin Mo didn't have extra slippers here, so he let her wear his. At first, he didn't want to care so much about her. After this person entered the bathroom, she lowered her head and started to wash her face. Chin Mo pulled her back. He lowered his head and rolled up her sleeves in a few seconds. It was purely because he couldn't stand this idiot's actions. However, Bojo realized something. Little Princess Chin's throat seemed to be uncomfortable. She couldn't have infected him, could she? As she was thinking about this, Bojo wasn't very serious when she was washing up. She casually washed her face and ran to the study table. She remembered that the little princess had placed the medicine box here last night. At this moment, Bojo didn't recognize any medicine. Moreover, it was written in Chinese characters. She couldn't understand it. But she recognized the picture printed on it. Based on her good memory, she recognized the box that the little princess had fed her yesterday. Yesterday, her throat didn't hurt so much after eating this lozenges. After taking it out, he carefully dismantled one pill. Chi Nemo saw the little tiger's actions but didn't pay much attention to it. He even felt that this little tiger was finally not stupid and knew how to find medicine for itself. But in the next second, Chi Nemo froze. That was because the little tiger used its height advantage to lift his chin and stuff a pill into his mouth. It was slightly sweet with a hint of bitterness. The taste of Chinese herbal medicine spread from the tip of his tongue. Chi Nemo's eyes widened. Not because of anything else, but after that person fed him the pills. She even rubbed his head and said, "Good boy, it's not bitter." As a boy, was he afraid of hardship? Besides, little Bojo, what kind of position are you in? Young Master Qin smiled coldly again. Anyway, it was already dawn. It didn't matter if he threw her out. But before he could say anything, the little tiger looked at him with her big eyes and said, "Momo, you must tell me if you feel uncomfortable. For example, your headache. Yesterday, I had a headache and then a fever. The fever was too stuffy and I couldn't come out to play with you. But this is also my fault. I know that my body is too weak, but I still came to find you." Very good. Once again. Chapter 14:27. Chi Nemo looked at her. This was the first time he wanted to refute someone so seriously. Little Bojo. Mmh. Bojo scratched her ears. She wanted to touch his head, but the little princess didn't seem to like it. Hence, she could only retract her hand. Chi Nemo said coldly, "I'm not weak. Remember this." "Okay, you're not weak. But I don't want you to get sick," Bojo said logically. "It's so uncomfortable to be sick. Not only do you have to take medicine, you can't go out and play. You can't eat meat either. You can only eat porridge and vegetables. It's so painful. If you get sick like this, my heart will definitely ache." Hearing this, Chi Nemo's gaze paused. He looked at the fierce little face under the morning sun. Maybe it was because the sun was too good today, or maybe it was because there was no impurity in those eyes, which made his heart feel warm. No one could notice his discomfort in time. Since young, his mother had been pampered like a princess by his father. Hence, she was always slower in terms of common sense. She wouldn't take care of him. He knew that he had never blamed anyone. But sometimes, he felt a little lonely. Especially at night, when he felt uncomfortable for the whole day. People would only know that he was sick the next day. That was why he gradually got used to it. When he was sick, it didn't matter if other people were around or not. Even his grandfather, who hadn't passed away, might not be able to notice it immediately when he was sick. But this little tiger knew and gave him a lozenge at the first moment. She even told him her heart would ache when he was sick. Chi Nemo moved. His fingers instinctively wanted to hold on to something. It was her restless claws that entered his hands. It was soft and suitable for his hands. Except for the fact that she was taller than him. Actually, this little tiger was quite pleasing to the eye. When she didn't speak, she was very obedient. As for other aspects, he could teach her slowly. Since she was the one who took the initiative to come to his side, he had no reason to reject her. It wasn't right. Anyway, her parents didn't care about him. It wasn't a problem for this person to belong to him. Although he didn't have any specific concept of raising a child. But it shouldn't be difficult to raise such a little tiger. What's more, a certain someone was stupid enough to want to buy him. Chi Nemo seemed to have confirmed something. He glanced over and helped Bojo roll her sleeves. His voice was calm. "Do you think everyone is like you, only liking to eat meat? I'm not the only one who likes to eat meat. Take another 10 steps and you will see the red-haired little William. He likes to eat meat too, but he's afraid of me. Every time he makes a turkey at home, he would offer some to me. His face would always be red. Bojo explained. The roasted turkey is delicious. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows and singled out the name without changing his expression. Little William. Yes, it's nearby. We even made an appointment to eat hamburgers together. Now we can only wait for my cold to recover. Bojo was busy explaining things to little Princess Chin. She didn't realize that Chin Mo's gaze was different from before. Previously, he had given himself a set environment. She thought she had no one to turn to but him. Now, it seemed that this was not the case at all. Also, the name William would only be given to a boy. Chapter 14:28. Chin Mo narrowed his eyes. He was as cold as a prince. When are you guys meeting? The day after tomorrow. Bojo told her little princess everything she knew. Chin Mo seemed to see the desire in her eyes to go out to eat hamburgers. After helping her roll up her sleeves, he said casually, "Your cold should be gone the day after tomorrow. You can go out to eat." When Bojo heard this, she was even happier. Her tiger eyes lit up. "Momo, do you want to go with me?" Her father had said that if she wanted to raise him, she had to show some sincerity and use feelings to communicate. Bojo thought about it and felt that other than sleeping, going out to eat meat was the best way to increase his affection. She didn't know that Chin Mo was waiting for her to say this. He smiled. "Okay." He agreed. Bojo blinked. She didn't dare to believe it. After all, Momo had rejected her last night. He had wanted to throw her out of the window. Why was he different today? As expected, her father's words were true. A good night's sleep can increase feelings. Bojo was happy for a while. When she came back to her senses, she realized that little Princess Chin was wiping her hands. She seemed to have become cleaner after being by his side. This was probably what her father had taught her before: you get stained by the company you keep. When she was young, Bojo had a strong comprehension ability. That was why Chin Mo would always have a headache trying to correct her understanding of Chinese characters. The young golden-haired butler was already prepared to send Miss Jo back to the other side as soon as he arrived. After all, he had overheard his young master using a restrained voice to say, "Little Bojo." He didn't expect that. Not only did his young master not allow him to send her back. After breakfast was served, he naturally peeled an egg for Miss Jo, who was sitting opposite him. The most difficult thing to accept was, he even blew on the bowl of porridge beside his hand and pushed it to the opposite side. Wait a minute. The butler started to recall the energetic Chinese culture he had learned about on the internet. The main characters didn't seem like they would do this. His young master didn't seem like he was taking care of someone his age. Instead, he seemed like he was raising a child. No, that wasn't right. He was more meticulous than raising a child. There was a rule in raising a child here. It was to cultivate the child's ability to take care of himself. Things like peeling eggs and blowing on porridge to cool down would never happen here. He didn't know if he had accidentally failed to control his rich expression. Young master, who was eating the soup dumplings, looked up and glanced at him. The golden-haired butler shivered and immediately stood up with the tray, assuming a standard standing posture. Chin Mo retracted his gaze and lowered his head to take another bite of the xylong bao on the bamboo chopsticks. It had been a long time since Bojo had such a scrumptious breakfast. However, there was something she was ashamed of. She preferred to eat with a spoon and didn't have many chances to use chopsticks. Therefore, when she reached for the soup dumplings with her chopsticks, her movements were a little clumsy. The clip fell off. The clip fell off the second time. For the third time, little Tiger Bo simply poked it with her chopsticks. After she poked it up, she howled and placed it all in her mouth. Chapter 14:29. Little Tiger Bo felt so happy that she was about to fly. She wanted to use the chopsticks to poke the second dumpling. However, little Princess Chin stopped her. Chopsticks aren't used like this. The voice was calm. Then, he reached out and held her hand. Then, he started to teach her how to hold it. Bojo tilted her head and looked at his posture. She moved the chopsticks in her hand downwards and held them again. Her hands were still a little small. It was still too slow for her to hold things like this. But when she looked at the little princess again, her hand holding the chopsticks was beautiful and accurate. It seemed like it wasn't because of the chopsticks. Bojo grabbed her hair. She was a little annoyed. I'm too stupid. Although Chin-mo kept calling a certain little tiger stupid, it didn't mean that he would let the little tiger he planned to raise feel inferior to others. Moreover, the little tiger was used to living abroad. It was understandable that she couldn't hold the chopsticks well. He had never raised a child before, but he knew that children had pride. With this thought, he raised his head and said to the golden-haired butler, "Try taking the chopsticks." The young golden-haired butler was a little confused when he heard this request. He didn't know what his young master's intention was at all. But as a qualified butler, he had to complete his master's request. Even though he was a foreigner, he had never used something like chopsticks before. But he had read about it many times in novels. He had always admired the Chinese for being able to use two small pieces of wood as cutlery to eat. The experts in the novels could even use one of the chopsticks to kill people. The young butler believed that as long as he learned slowly, he would be able to do it one day. Hence, when Chin-mo said this, the young butler was very willing to try. With great respect, he picked up the pair of serving chopsticks on the dining table and aimed it at the steaming soup dumplings. The first time, it didn't come up. The second time, it slipped. The third time, he recalled what his young master had said when he was teaching Miss Jo. He didn't use enough strength and one of the chopsticks actually fell. His face was full of question marks. Was it so difficult? The young butler's expression was so rich that he could make an emoticon. As you can see, some adults don't even know how to use chopsticks. It's normal that you can't use them well. At least you can pick things up. MMH. Bojo was elated. She shook her little tiger tail and nodded. Seeing this, Chin-mo thought for a moment and brought the soup dumpling he had picked up to the little tiger's mouth. Since it was all his, he naturally had to be responsible for feeding it. Although he wasn't used to it, he would take it slow. Fortunately, this little tiger was smarter than ordinary people. She would definitely be able to learn how to hold chopsticks quickly. The young butler, who had not finished practicing, was speechless. He felt the deep malice of this world, all because of the chopsticks, the utensils that tested the foreigners. But, young master, don't you think you're being too nice to Miss Jo? Are you going to raise Mr. Bo's child? If Chairman An knew about this, he would definitely be shocked. The young blonde butler had a lot to say to his boss. He was in charge of the young master's daily life. Chairman An had said that if there was even the slightest change in the young master, he had to call him to let him know. It was obvious that he was helping someone raise a child. Chapter 14:30. Before the golden-haired butler could make the call to inform him, he was called to the study by the young master who had finished breakfast. Their young master was really like a character in a martial arts novel. How could a child be interested in the four arts from a young age? Their young master was one. The study was separate and there were also ink, paper, and inkstones that would only be used in ancient China. The golden-haired butler deeply felt that he had made the right decision to come to the Inn family. Those book friends didn't understand what it felt like to have a real-life expert bring in. Their young master was definitely a legendary expert. However, the golden-haired butler didn't know why his young master was looking for him at this time. The only thing he could think of was that his young master would definitely warn him not to say anything he shouldn't say. Don't ask him why he knew. That was how online novels were written. However, Qin Mo didn't say this. Instead, he asked, "Do you have any experience raising children?" The golden-haired butler, Qin Mo, raised his eyebrows. N. The golden-haired butler straightened his posture and temporarily treated it as the young master asking him for advice. In the West, when raising children, we pay special attention to one thing. We have to cultivate the child's independence. After saying that, he observed the young master's expression. He seemed quite satisfied. He continued, "For example, it's better to let the child do it himself." When Qin Mo heard this, he looked up. "May I ask, how old are you this year?" "Young man, I'm 24, the golden-haired butler said in English. After Qin Mo heard this, he put down the notebook in his hand. 24 years old shouldn't be married yet. I've read Western books. It seems like you have no experience in teaching children. So..." The golden-haired butler didn't quite understand this sentence. Qin Mo seemed to be specifying some plan and said to himself, "You still have to feed the baby tiger." The golden-haired butler. "Young master, since you have already decided, why are you asking me? What's more, the baby tiger is still young. You are the same age. Also, change my breakfast to milk in the future." When Qin Mo said this, there was no expression on his little face. The golden-haired butler was confused. "Young master, I thought you didn't like milk." Chairman An had even specifically mentioned this point in the kitchen. The young master had a preference for Chinese food and did not like milk with its fishy smell and foam. He rarely drank it. Why did they suddenly want to change breakfast? Qin Mo's fingers paused when he heard the butler's question. What else could it be? 3 centimeters. Young master. The golden-haired butler glanced sideways and asked again. Qin Mo's expression was calm. "From today onwards, I like it." The golden-haired butler was speechless. He thought that his young master was really unpredictable. Just at this moment, he suddenly heard a cute little voice with the aura of a tiger. "Momo." The young golden-haired butler turned his head, and sure enough, it was Miss Jo. Qin Mo saw the little tiger walking over with hot water in her paws. He raised his eyes and gave the blonde butler a look. The golden-haired butler did this very well. His eyes lit up as soon as he saw it. His comprehension ability was very strong. No, he had a stomach full of things to tell Chairman An. He had to calm down and summarize. Bojo, who was in the study room, still didn't know what had happened. She wagged her little tail and watched as her little princess drank the hot water she brought over. His heart was filled with boundless satisfaction. Yesterday, Momo didn't drink the food she brought over. Today, she didn't resist. This was a good sign. She believed that soon, her little princess would agree to buy herself to her. She was so happy. Qin Mo drank the hot water in the cup and his throat felt much better. Then, he looked at the little tiger wagging her tail in front of him. He completely rejected the young butler's suggestion. The little tiger already knew how to take care of him. She didn't need to cultivate any independence. However, there was one thing that didn't develop according to Qin Mo's plan. After the little tiger watched him drink the medicine, she suggested going home. She wagged her tail and said, "Mommy is back. She must be pestered by Dad again. I have to go and act cute." Otherwise, Mommy will be worried. He knew that what the little tiger said was right. But his original plan was to teach her how to write. In this case, he could only stay in the study room. Chin-mo told himself that it wasn't a big deal. In fact, it would be quieter. Bojo saw the little princess agree. Then, she stood beside the study table and picked up the brush on the table. She looked at his face, which was half hidden in the light. He seemed to need someone to hug him. As Bojo thought about this, she couldn't control herself. She used a little more force and hugged him. However, the brush fell and the other end successfully scratched Chin-mo's face. There was a second of awkwardness. Bojo started to realize that she was too rough. She reached out her claws to scratch her ears. Her little princess would definitely call her name again. Unexpectedly, that person just glanced at her. Then, he took out a piece of paper and wiped his dirty face. The more he did this, the more little Tiger Bo felt guilty and flustered. Chin-mo was clear about one thing. Naturally, he had to treat her differently if she was raised by him or not. If he raised her, he had to teach her slowly. Don't rush over like this in the future. Bojo nodded and said, Momo, can you not practice your calligraphy first? Why? After Chin-mo wiped his face clean, he gave off the feeling of a little prince. Bojo held his hand. I want to bring you to meet my parents. You took care of me for the whole night yesterday. I have to tell my dad. This was a historic development. She still had to learn from her dad about what to do next. Chin-mo paused when he heard her words. He thought that she would definitely come often in the future. From an etiquette point of view, he should indeed greet Uncle Bo and the others. If Grandpa were to find out about this, he would definitely laugh at him again. After all, when had his grandson ever taken the initiative to visit anyone? Now, he was convinced by the little tiger's words. It was really a miracle. But today, Chin-mo really didn't want to stay in the study alone. In the past, he didn't think that there was anything wrong with this. It was probably because there was a little tiger beside him. Suddenly, without her, the study became very cold and cheerless. After finding a reason to convince himself, young Master Chin tidied up. Young Master Chin packed up and took out his own down jacket with a furry collar. He covered the little tiger with it. At this moment, Bojo didn't feel any pressure wearing Chin-mo's clothes. Instead, it made her little face look even better. The two of them were wearing the same brand of jacket. Young Master Chin had a taste in clothes since he was young. It was probably because of movie Queen Anne's influence. Now, the two of them were wearing the same series of down jackets and stepping on the white snow. No matter how one looked at them, they gave off the feeling that they were carved out of jade. Bojo was very happy because the little princess let her hold his hand and walk away. But there was one bad thing. For some reason, every time the little princess looked at her shoulder, his gaze would change. As for this point, the golden-haired butler, who stood at the door and sent the two children away, must have discovered the secret of why the little young master set the standard for breakfast to be milk. The little young master must be concerned about the problem of height. From the looks of it, the little young master was indeed shorter than Miss Jo. After the golden-haired butler caught this information, he called his boss. After old master heard about this, he smiled so much that there were more wrinkles at the corner of his eyes. Ah! His grandson also had this kind of moment. Was he starting to drink milk because of his height problem? When old master smiled, he rejoiced again that he had brought his grandson here. No, it should be said that being able to meet the little tiger of the Bo family was the most important thing. On the other side, this was the first time little Bojo brought someone home as a guest. Her father hid too many little secrets and it wasn't convenient for others to see them. As the little tyrant of the area, Those people couldn't understand why she liked the little keyboard. To those who didn't understand her, naturally, Bojo wouldn't bring it home. Momo was different. She knew that the little keyboard was very important to her. She even wiped it for her and let her hug it. Anyway, how did little Tiger Bo see her little princess now? Mr. Bo didn't expect that his Lord Gio would bring young Master Qin from across the street to freeload. He had originally set up the image of a man who relied on women. After seeing Qin Mo, he raised his eyebrows lazily. Qin Mo was a smart person. He thought of the adult he saw at home and the adult who was wearing a headband on his head and dressed like a student. He called out calmly, "Uncle Bo." Mr. Bo smiled. "Good boy." This little devil from the Qin family was really interesting. But no matter how interesting he was, he would probably fall into the hands of his Lord Zhou. He knew very well that when his little ninth master wanted something, his passion could melt a person's heart. He could do whatever he wanted. Mr. Bo invited them to sit down elegantly. Mrs. Bo was wearing a business suit and a pair of black high heels. It seemed like she was going out. However, when she saw her daughter, the coldness in her eyes melted. She bent down and carried her daughter up. Was Jill obedient today? Mrs. Bo looked at Mrs. Bo. Yes, Bojo promised obediently. I wasn't naughty at all. Mrs. Bo smiled lightly and pinched her nose. When she saw Qin Mo standing on the other side, a hint of surprise flashed past her eyes. Her Jill would never bring little children home. This was the first one. Moreover, he had Chinese blood in him. Mrs. Bo was a businessman. She had seen many different kinds of people. But no child could be more outstanding than the little boy in front of her. It would remind her of the ancient poems she had learned before she went abroad. A bandit prince standing gracefully. He was young but noble. Where did her Jill get to know such a little friend? Bojo noticed her mother's gaze. She turned her tiger eyes and came out of her arms. She ran to Qin Mo and held his hand. Mom, this is Momo. Yesterday, he took care of me for the whole night and even fed me medicine. Mrs. Bo knew that her Jill never praised people easily. The father and daughter were always indolent to everyone. They rarely took a liking to anyone. Now, the look in her daughter's eyes wasn't as simple as this boy taking care of her. Mrs. Bo wanted to say something. But she saw the boy make a movement. It was a very small movement. He just stretched out his hand to help her Jill pull up her sleeves. Her Jill had been smart since she was young. Her memory was different from other children. Mrs. Bo wasn't at home. Sometimes she wondered if this kind of memory was imperceptibly influenced by others. This was both a good and bad thing for children. If their intelligence was high, they might not be able to make friends during their childhood. She was always worried that no one would take care of her Jill. Now, it seemed that she didn't have to worry so much. Among her peers, there were people who could understand her Jill. It seemed that not only did they understand her, they even did the job of a mother. Thank you, little Prince Mo, for taking care of my Jill. Mrs. Bo bent down and touched Qin Mo's head gently. You haven't eaten lunch, right? I'll make something for you and Jill later. Qin Mo didn't say anything. Mr. Bo opened his mouth. Don't you have a meeting to rush to? As expected, you are just coaxing me. Mrs. Bo glanced at him. What she meant was that there was a child around and he, the older child, should wait for a while. Mr. Bo placed his hand behind his back. It seems like I'm going to fall out of favor. It was just 2 sentences. Qin Mo knew what kind of situation this family was in. It was completely different from his family. His mother was taken care of by his father. He took care of everything and was very gentle and considerate. It didn't seem like she was in the army at all. but the dignity of the family was still there. And his mother was always controlled by his father. On the other hand, Uncle Bo was very unscrupulous when he lived off a woman. Auntie Bo was basically in charge of coaxing the two children. One was the little tiger and the other was Uncle Bo. Chin Mo thought that he might be able to help Auntie Bo. Before the meal started, he naturally brought the little tiger to the side, leaving more space for Uncle Bo to live off a woman. This was also the reason why the latter found this kid more and more pleasing to the eye. Not bad, he was quite smart. Mr. Bo thought about it and took up more of his wife's time. She used her actions to tell his CEO that she didn't need to care about the two children. The one who needed to be cared about was him, the older child. That was indeed the case. Little Tiger Bo's attention wasn't on her mother anymore. Instead, she really wanted to introduce her things to her little princess. This wasn't because of her father. She wanted to be closer to her little princess. When Chin Mo followed the little tiger into the room, he realized that this room was different from the other children's rooms. It wasn't because of the decorations. It was because it was impossible to put 3 computers in a child's room. Moreover, every computer was the latest model. Not to mention the computer programming books scattered on the floor. Although they were very simple, Chin Mo's English had always been good. Chapter 1431. Momo, sit. After saying this, little Tiger Bo glanced at her room. In the past, she didn't think much of it. But now, when she looked at it again, it was nothing compared to the little princess's room. Hence, the little tiger wagged her tail and explained forcefully, I usually like to clean but I caught a cold yesterday and couldn't clean. The room is messy. Why don't you sit on my lap? After saying this, she patted her leg. Chin Mo didn't care about her. He walked over and picked up one of the bag of chips. His face was cold. This shouldn't be from yesterday. Little Tiger Bo, who was exposed, started to change the topic. Momo, let me introduce my pets to you. This is Little Silver number 1, this is Little Silver number 2, they were all computers. Chin Mo glanced over. He knew that the child needed to be coaxed, so his praise was rather perfunctory. Not bad names. If the computer had sentience, it would definitely jump out and ask the little prince what was so good about Little Silver number 1 and Little Silver number 2. On the other hand, Little Tiger Bo was delighted that her taste was approved. I haven't completed my mission today. Momo, wait at the side. I'll be done soon. Ever since she was young, Bojo rarely trusted anyone. It was probably like what Madame Bo said. This child took after her father. She might look lazy, but in reality, it was hard to get close to her. But in front of Chin Mo, Bojo seemed to be completely open. She didn't know why. It was probably because she met someone who lived a completely different lifestyle from her. Or maybe it was because no matter what she saw, little Princess Chin would be the same as before. Even in such a situation, he would only roll up her sleeves. Bojo felt that meeting the little princess was a blessing she had accumulated in her previous life. Of course, she had to treat her future pet with sincerity. Her dad had said that humans could disguise themselves in different ways. But when she met someone she truly liked, she had to listen to him and give in to him with her heart. Little Bojo felt that she was a domineering CEO. Of course, she had to show this through her actions. She had to spoil the little princess. Now, she had to let the little princess know that she was busy occasionally and couldn't always accompany him. This way, the little princess would be sensible and wouldn't have a psychological gap. When little Tiger Bo thought about this, she felt that she was too smart. She wagged her tail and smiled. Chin Mo watched from the side as she bent over to connect the keyboard. Her tiger paws typed slowly on the keyboard. Her white and tender paws were a little small. However, the speed was very fast, and the code that he typed was something that no one could understand. That kind of scene would usually only appear in a comic. After all, the person typing on the keyboard was too young. Before he had met this little tiger, Chin Mo had thought that in terms of intelligence, he was one of the few people his age. Now that he saw the little tiger typing on the keyboard, the word genius naturally appeared in his mind. The little tiger he wanted to raise was a genius. From the looks of it, he had to pay extra attention to his diet and nutrition. Young Master Chin was indeed young Master Chin. Seeing such a thing, the first thing he thought of was how to raise people well. This time, she was fast. What a joke. The little princess was still waiting at the side. She had to show off her boyfriend power when she was doing her mission seriously. The little tiger buried her head in her computer program and didn't notice that Chin Mo was looking at her as though she was a pet. He was probably too engrossed in deciphering some things. When the little tiger came back to her senses, she realized that half an hour had passed. Oh no! She had forgotten that the little princess was at the side. Would the little princess feel that she had neglected him? Little Bojio thought about this and sat up with a roll. But when she turned around, her round tiger eyes were wide open. Her room seemed to have become a lot tidier. Then, she looked at Chin Mo, who had placed her code book at the side. In an instant, there was only surprise left on little Bojio's face. She couldn't control herself and pounced on the cold-looking boy. Wasn't that enough? She even rubbed her little tiger face against him. Momo, why are you so virtuous? I'll marry you in the future, okay? Chin Mo wasn't willing to be pounced on like this because the more she did, the more he could feel the difference in height between them. But a certain little tiger didn't know how to restrain herself. And what did she mean by marrying him in the future? Little Bojio, virtuous is used to describe a girl. When Chin Mo said this, his tone was a little gritted. Little Bojio didn't get it at all. She looked up with bright eyes and her tiger ears perked up. But you're so capable. You're virtuous. After she finished speaking, she lowered her eyes and kissed him naturally. I'll give you a kiss as a compliment. Instantly, Chin Mo's fingers froze. Even the words he wanted to say were blocked by the word chirp. The place that was kissed felt hot again and again. Coupled with her soft face, it was as if a feather had gently brushed against the bottom of her heart. There was an indescribable itch, and there was also the milky fragrance of candy. It was hard for people not to pay attention to it. Chin Mo pushed the little tiger away and tilted his head. Bojio wasn't sad at all after being pushed away. She patted her little tiger's sleepy head and smiled at the boy whose ears were gradually turning red. This was the bad thing about her little princess. She was too shy. In comparison, she seemed like a little gangster. But she could still understand her little princess's heart. He must be thinking that if he performed well, he would get a kiss. He would definitely perform better in the future. Fortunately, young Master Chin didn't have any achievements in psychology. If not, he would definitely take a deep breath after knowing the little tiger's inner thoughts. Bojio was elated for a while. Then, she said seriously, Momo, even if you're not virtuous, I will still kiss you. Chin Mo only gave her one word. Ha! The cold and aloof little prince. Bojio understood that he was being arrogant. It wouldn't affect her performance. Chin Mo looked at the little tiger in front of him and narrowed his eyes. He realized that a certain someone didn't understand the difference between men and women. Also, it wasn't good to kiss whoever she liked. After all, there was still the little red hair called William. With this thought, Chin Mo turned his face and pinched the little tiger's ears. He realized that he wasn't as smooth as he had thought when he was doing this. When they stood together, he was a little shorter than her. This caused Chin Mo's voice to be much colder when he spoke. In the future, don't kiss anyone you see. You shouldn't use this method to express your love. Bojo tilted her head. Don't use this method. What should I use? I usually give them a hand gift. A hand gift is for a boy to a girl. Besides, there isn't a hand gift in China. Did she want to kiss anyone she saw? Bojo blinked. But we aren't in China now. Don't you have basic manners? Do you usually attend banquets? Chin Mo interrupted the little tiger. Bojo shook her head. I don't. Do you follow Grandpa to socialize like me? Chin Mo asked again. Bojo continued to shake her head. Then, why do you have to give them a hand gift? Chin Mo added. If you give them a hand gift, it will only make people feel greasy. Alright, Bojo didn't want to be treated as a greasy uncle. She was so cute. Then, I won't kiss them. The little tiger said obediently, but in reality, her little face was still mischievous. Chin Mo was used to it. His expression was as cold as before. He didn't say anything else. Raising a child wasn't something that could be done in a day. Moreover, he was raising a little tiger. Some habits had to be corrected slowly. Little Tiger Bo suddenly seemed to have thought of something. She pulled her little princess's hand over and opened one of the computers. One of her little hands moved as though she was modifying some program. Even though Chin Mo's intelligence was high, he was still lacking when it came to computers. He couldn't understand what the little tiger was doing. He could only see his name flashing. Then, a certain someone's tail wagged twice. Momo, use the mouse to play this game. It's very fun. It will take less than a minute. Even though Chin Mo didn't understand the code, he knew that this was a simple little game that the little tiger had made herself. Is this the mission you were talking about? Bojo replied. My dad gave it to me. If I don't do it well, I will eat his instant noodles. I would rather die than eat his noodles. It could be seen how dark Mr. Bo's cooking skills were. Chin Mo wasn't someone who liked to talk about his elders. But little Tiger Bo was. It wasn't easy for her to find someone to complain to. Little Tiger Bo counted her fingers and started to criticize her dad's various shortcomings. He always plays rock paper scissors with me. In order to get more love from my mom, he even says that he cooked the noodles because the noodles he cooked can't be eaten. Last time, he added squid in the noodles. The squid was too disgusting and he didn't cook it well. He said that he should cherish his food and brought a pot out to feed the kitten. In the end, even the kitten didn't want to eat the food he cooked. Yet, he likes to show off his cooking skills. Speaking up to this point, the little tiger wagged her tail again. She looked at her little princess seriously and said, Momo, later, if my dad takes something for you to eat and says that he cooked it for my mom, you mustn't eat it. It's poisonous. Okay. Chin Mo agreed casually. In his heart, he was thinking about what the little tiger usually ate if that was the case. However, he was already prepared for this. After all, the memory of her and Uncle Bo going to their house to freeload food was still fresh in his mind. Little Tiger Bo didn't know that her plan to pretend to be obedient that day had been exposed. She used her small hand to poke the screen and told Chin Mo, Momo, you can move the mouse now. Chin Mo didn't have any feelings towards games. But no matter what, he was still a boy. He found it interesting. He pressed the button with his right hand and the little zombie on the screen jumped forward. The simplicity of the program meant that it was easy to operate. There wasn't any difficulty. At first, he thought that he would just have to jump out of the small wooden coffin and get the blood fruit. To Chin Mo, this wasn't a challenge at all. Unexpectedly, when the little zombie he was controlling received the blood fruit, a line of words suddenly appeared on the screen. Congratulations to my little prince Momo for successfully passing the level. I'll give myself to you. Chirp. Then, on the screen, the special effect of the stars spread out. Every star had the word Momo written on it. Chin Mo's fingers paused. He seemed to be able to see the broken stars reflected in his eyes. He had to admit that the little tiger was very good at making people happy. But, the program in the game was written a long time ago. Just now, you just changed it to my name, right? When Bojio heard this, her eyes widened. Momo, you're so smart. Chin Mo didn't say anything. If this program was written a long time ago, what was the previous name? Bojio didn't realize that the little princess beside her was a very possessive person. She was still asking for praise. Am I very good? Chin Mo retracted his gaze and replied faintly, MMH. That was it. Little Tiger Bo thought that after the little princess played the game, he would agree to be her pet. She had called her father and told him about this. Her father said that this was a strategy. Why didn't this strategy work at all? This was the first time she allowed someone to play the game she made. She didn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. In the past, she had always given herself to her and wrote her name. She had never changed her name to someone else's before. Also, the game she made was quite fun. At the start, she could clearly see the smile on the little princess's face. But that smile didn't last for long before it gradually disappeared. In the end, it became much colder. It seemed like she couldn't listen to her father for some things. Her boss's style was too bold. This wasn't good. It didn't match her reserved image. She had to be self-reliant so that the little princess could accept her as soon as possible. Little Bojio redefined her position. Forgive me for not knowing that her little princess Chin only had one thought in his mind. That was the day after tomorrow. He wanted to meet the Mr. William that the little tiger had mentioned. After all, he didn't like this kind of person who enjoyed the benefits he deserved one step ahead of him. In short, this was a perfect misunderstanding. On the other hand, little William, who had just jumped off the school bus, sneezed loudly twice. Then he turned his head and looked behind him. For some reason, he felt a chill at the back of his neck. This must be his illusion. Little William rubbed the tip of his nose. He had golden hair and blue eyes. In addition, he was originally a foreigner, so he always looked a little unrestrained. Tomorrow, he would be able to go out with Joe to eat hamburgers. This time, he must ask his father for some money. If not, he wouldn't have enough to eat. But recently, he heard that a Chinese kid had moved into this area. It was rumored in their school that he was good-looking and looked like a little prince. He wasn't bragging. With him around, who would dare to call themselves a little prince? Chapter 1432. At that time, little William did not realize how naive his thoughts were. He waited until the next day. Little Tiger Bo had always liked to eat hamburgers. In addition, he rarely went out. This time, he was going out with the little princess. No matter how he thought about it, he was excited. She climbed Chin Mo's wall before the sun rose. Unfortunately, after being discovered, little Princess Chin didn't talk to her for an hour. Bojio caressed the bridge of her nose, walking 2 rounds beside him. In the end, Chin Mo heard someone's stomach rumbling. He frowned. Come over. Bojio was standing by the side of the bed. When she heard the little princess's words, she moved closer. Chin Mo helped her take off her hat before asking, "Do you know your mistake?" Bojio blinked. I know. Looking at that expression, it was impossible for him to know. Chin Mo wanted to ask his family to put a few more potted plants outside. He wanted to see how she was going to do those dangerous things with all these things in front of him. Little Tiger Bo was still immersed in the excitement of going out to eat hamburgers. She couldn't understand little Princess Chin's thoughts at all. But then she was glad again. Because little Princess Chin took a piece of cake out of nowhere and put it in her mouth. Delicious. The outside was crispy, but the inside was soft with a hint of sweetness. It wasn't like the snacks she had eaten before. It looked like it was made in China. Ever since she was young, little Tiger Bo had always been interested in local food. She glanced over with her round eyes. She wanted to eat a second one. But she became reserved. Chin Mo could tell what the little tiger was thinking. He smiled and looked at her obedient look. He pinched another piece and placed it in her mouth. His voice was cold. Remember to eat breakfast in the future. Little Tiger Bo nodded perfunctorily. Her attention was focused on the delicacy. Momo, what is this pastry called? Chin Mo paused. It was obvious that he didn't want to say the name. However, little Tiger Bo didn't seem to have any intention of giving up after eating 3. As he wiped his hands, he spat out 3 words, wife cake. Wife biscuits. What does wife mean? At this moment, her vocabulary was still limited. The main reason was that Mr. Bo never addressed his wife as his wife at home. He always called her Mrs. Bo. Hence, until now, little Tiger Bo had never come into contact with this term. However, little Tiger Bo didn't want the little princess she wanted to buy to think that she was uncultured. Therefore, she tried her best to make her face look as calm as possible. In her heart, however, she was thinking that when she returned home, she would have to ask her father what his wife meant. Actually, the reason why Chin Mo didn't want to say it wasn't just because of the name. It was the story behind it. It had to be said that this was also because it was Chin Mo. Other people at his age might not know that there was a story behind the wife cake. This was inseparable from his family's upbringing. Old Master Chin, who had passed away, was the founding general of the country. When he had taught Chin Mo, many things had been imperceptibly influenced. Every object had an allusion to it. This was not something that every general could do. But for the 1,000-year inheritance of a great country, Old Master Chin valued him very much. Over time, Chin Mo had read countless books. When Old Master Chin was still alive, every time he saw little Chin Mo sitting at the desk reading, he would let him go out to play. At that time, Chin Mo was still wearing camouflage clothes, which was different from what he was wearing here. He gave people the feeling of a little man. He only told Old Master Chin that after training, he liked to read books. Many people were lamenting that the Chin family had such a child, which was simply used as a benchmark. That was indeed the case. There was one thing that the young butler was right about. Their young master had the temperament of a young master from an ancient aristocratic family, just like a royal family. Indeed, that was right. In the modern world, there were many outstanding children. But the cultivation of an aura definitely didn't rely solely on the accumulation of money. Especially this kind of ancient nobility. It depended on one's character, upbringing, and everything that one had absorbed. Chin Mo was such an existence. He watched as the little tiger beside him ate the wife cake. A string of illusion appeared in his mind. Fortunately, the little tiger didn't know the meaning of a boy giving a girl a wife cake to eat. Otherwise, who knew what else she would do? Even if she raised her as her own. But the indifferent young Master Chin still wasn't used to being kissed like this. After all, he only wanted to raise the little tiger, not marry her. Bojo didn't know what the little princess was thinking. The wife cake was too delicious and the black tea that the little princess fed her. Accidentally, she ate 6 pieces. When she wanted to eat more, Chin Mo frowned. Chin Mo frowned and took the tray to the side. Eating too much sweets wasn't good for her teeth. This idiot really didn't know anything. Chin-mo now understood the helplessness of raising a child. There was nothing left to eat. Little Tiger Bo patted her clothes and stood up. Today, Bojo didn't wear her pajamas. Instead, she wore a pure white sweater and the black down jacket that Chin-mo had given her yesterday. It matched Chin-mo's current attire. Chin-mo was very satisfied with this. After they went out, he was worried that the little tiger would feel cold. He took off the scarf around his neck and wanted to wrap it around the little tiger. It was also at this moment. The awkward moment came. He was shorter than her. Although he didn't need to stand on his tiptoes this time. Young Master Chin still raised his eyebrows. His expression didn't change, but his tone was very calm. Don't drink milk for breakfast in the future. After Bojo's little face was wrapped by the scarf, her round tiger eyes seemed even brighter. It was very attractive, but she didn't understand why the little princess didn't allow her to drink milk. Chin-mo saw the confusion on her little face. He said calmly, "From tomorrow onwards, I will ask the butler to send you porridge in the morning. There will also be soup dumplings made at home. Don't you like to eat these?" Compared to milk, of course, soup dumplings were better. Bojo really didn't expect her little princess to be so considerate. She stretched out her hand instinctively and hugged the boy's waist in front of her. "Momo, you are so good to me." Chin-mo's face heated up. He didn't know if it was because he had a selfish motive for sending this breakfast or because she hugged him again. The scene of two children hugging each other was still very eye-catching. Grandpa happened to go out late today. When he saw that his grandson was being hugged but he didn't push the other party away, the surprise in his eyes became even more obvious. He knew that his grandson treated the little tiger of the Bo family differently, but he didn't know that it was different to this extent. It had only been 3.5 days and he had already become so good. Was his grandson's cold and aloof persona about to crumble? But this was also good. The friends made when they were young were usually the most heartwarming. If Grandpa knew that his grandson wasn't making friends but was raising a child, he would definitely feel vexed. On the other hand, the golden-haired butler at the side felt that his young master was seriously making a plan to raise a child. It was really scary. Little Tiger Bo had a different view on this point. She didn't feel that she was being raised by her little princess. After all, her father had said that the person who made the decision financially was the one who raised the family. For example, her mother was the one who raised her and her father and their family. She had planned to pay the bill when she arrived at the hamburger shop. She had to show her family's financial resources to her little princess. Other than eating a lot of meat, this was little Tiger Bo's goal. The An family didn't lack chauffeurs. This was the first time his grandson went out after he came overseas. Grandpa An's feelings were complicated. He was afraid that his grandson wouldn't like this place and would prefer to live in China, so he specially sent a Lincoln limousine. It had to be said that Grandpa An's style was very exaggerated when it came to pampering his grandson. On the other hand, when Chin-mo saw the limousine, he asked the chauffeur, who was wearing a tall hat, to change to another car. The limousine was too big. He sat in the back and couldn't carry the little tiger on his lap. This was what he had read in the book yesterday. It was best to carry the child on your lap when taking care of a child. That way, you would know that you valued her. Chin-mo thought for a moment. It was most convenient to sit in a car. He was shorter than her after all. Little Princess Chin was very concerned about his height, but he didn't show it. On the other hand, little Tiger Bo was a little surprised when she was carried in the car. Usually, she was the one who thought of ways to pounce on the little princess. It was really abnormal for the little princess to take the initiative to hug her. Was the little princess not shy anymore? Bojo tilted her head and studied Chin-mo's expression. She could only see the coldness on his face. She couldn't see anything else. At the start, Chin Mo felt a little uncomfortable. After all, he had never hugged anyone before. After driving for 3 minutes, he got used to the milky fragrance on the little tiger's body. Bojo opened her eyes wide. She sat in his arms and looked left and right through the car window. Every time she passed a street, she would introduce it to Chin Mo. Momo, you must go and play here. My dad brought me here and it's very fun. Momo, there is a river on your side and across the river is my dad's school. In the past, before you came here, I would always go there to play alone. My dad is still a postgraduate student. Can you believe that a person like my dad is also a postgraduate student? My dad is too dissolute. I have to help my mom keep an eye on him. There was a period of time when I went to spy on him every day. In the end, that guy only knew how to sleep. He even placed me under his desk and made me sleep there. But when the bearded Professor Robert teaches, it is really easy for people to fall asleep. Anyway, it's not easy to describe. The scenery outside was very good. In addition, the baby's voice was soft and cute. Everything seemed to have entered a European-style painting. Everyone who lived abroad knew this. Due to the environment. The streets here were very clean. In addition, it had just snowed. There was also a sweet fragrance in the air. When they passed by the square, there was even a flock of white pigeons flying past. The people walking on the street liked to hold a cup of coffee in their hands. The European-style buildings rose from the ground. Most of them had clear colors. This was probably the charm of this city. But Chin Mo didn't look at the scenery. Instead, all his attention was on the little tiger in his arms. Other than rolling up her sleeves. From her words, he came to a conclusion. The little tiger he was going to raise seemed to have a good memory. Not all children could remember the way. Even adults would get lost. Take his mother for example. She would never be able to tell north from south. But for the little tiger, not only could she tell the direction, but she could also remember the appearance and direction of each street, as well as what was there. This was no longer about the sense of direction. It was about memory. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. He had to admit that the more he interacted with the little tiger, the more he felt that his superpower was nothing. Because there was someone here who was similar to him. She seemed to want to confirm something. Chin Mo pulled out a book from the back of the chair in front of him. It was a book that his grandfather often read. It was an English version about business. This shouldn't be a problem for the little tiger. He flipped to a page. Little Bojo. MH. Little Tiger Bo was still mischievous. She was thinking about how to kiss the little princess without being noticed. What's written here? Chin Mo pointed at one of the paragraphs. Bojo lowered her eyes. Her eyelashes were long as she read a paragraph. After Chin Mo finished listening, he closed the book. Little Tiger Bo realized something. Was the little princess asking her a question just now? It was really too cute. She wouldn't laugh at the little princess's poor English. After all, she had just started to learn the Chinese characters seriously. Just as she was about to give the little princess a kiss to comfort him, the little princess spoke again. The little princess spoke again. How much do you remember about the part that I just read? Little Tiger Bo thought to herself. He was asking her for a question again. He was really arrogant and cute. He angrily repeated what he had just said. She was waiting for the little princess to look at her with admiration. However, there was nothing. Chin Mo just placed the book down and smiled. As expected, it's just as I thought. This little tiger was the same as him. She had a photographic memory. Of course, memory could be developed later on. She just needed a little bit of talent and a memory bank. It wasn't impossible. Anyone who had watched The Strongest Brain would know. Every object and place has a connection to it. As long as you remembered these connections, remembering things would be very easy. That was because it would form a small three-dimensional map in your mind. This kind of map could only be perceived by yourself. In the past, when he displayed this ability, others would be shocked. They should really come and see the little tiger he was raising. In this aspect, she seemed to be stronger. Bojo's ears perked up as she looked at the smile. She felt that the smile was too beautiful. It was like the snow that had just melted outside. Did the little princess want her to kiss him when he smiled like that? No, she had to restrain herself today. She still had to eat later. If she paid for the kiss in advance today, she would be too happy after eating, but the little princess wouldn't let her kiss him. That would be too sad. Just as little Tiger Bo was thinking about this, they had reached their destination. The black low-profile car stopped by the roadside. It was a plaza with an amusement park. Chapter 1433. Chin-mo and Bojo alighted the car one after another. Their attire wasn't outstanding, but it was because they were too cute. Coupled with that pair of black eyes. Very quickly, some foreigners couldn't help but look over. After all, these two Asian kids were really too cute. Especially that little boy, why was he so charismatic? After Chin-mo alighted, he didn't leave immediately. He didn't let the little tiger run around either. Instead, he lowered his lids and adjusted her down jacket. Then, he helped her adjust her scarf. When the foreigners saw this scene, they felt that it was too loving. Did all Asian kids take care of people like this? Even though the driver, old Wang, had lived here for a long time, he knew his young master well. When he was watching from the side, he wanted to record this scene with his phone and send it to Chairman In. It was really unbelievable. It was even more unbelievable than young master carrying Miss Jo in the car. After all, young master had never served anyone before. Chin-mo didn't think much of it. Of course, he had to take good care of his own child. Besides, the weather outside was so cold. This little tiger had always been wearing her skin on her clothes. Either her sleeves weren't rolled up properly or her jacket wasn't zipped up. If he didn't care, who would? After Chin-mo surrounded them, he held the little tiger's hand. Bojo was overjoyed. She walked forward. If she was wearing her little tiger pajamas, she would definitely be wagging her tail. Compared to the domestic ones, overseas amusement parks would have many clowns and magicians dressed in exaggerated clothes. But the children were all the same. They watched as people with all kinds of hair walked past them. Chin-mo brought the little tiger in his direction. Little William was wearing an orange coat and a Christmas wool hat. He had his hands in his pockets and was waiting at the agreed place. In his imagination, Joe should have appeared alone. Joe should have appeared alone. But what he didn't expect was, when he glanced up, he saw not only Joe but also someone he didn't know. And that person's appearance was outrageous. He had black eyes, black hair and that face. Little William was an Asian. Similarly, he understood that Joe was also an Asian. Logically, Joe was also an Asian. Shouldn't she prefer Westerners? But when such a handsome man like him swayed in front of her, she did not have any reaction at all. Little William still remembered his first awakening of love. Originally, he had brought his subordinates to confess. He didn't expect Joe to think that he wanted to fight with her. In the end, he was beaten up. He was such a big guy, yet he was beaten. From then on, little William, who had a hero complex, admired Joe even more. Therefore, even in the face of such a face, he was not tempted. He was afraid that his Joe would be tempted. Little William seemed to have predicted something. He glared at Joe angrily. Sure enough, in her eyes, there was only this little demon from the east. How hateful! Little William sniffled. His nose was still red and he felt a little wronged. But he couldn't show it. Especially in front of this little demon from the east. As little William thought about this, his gaze fell on Chin Mo. At the same time, Chin Mo had also noticed the red-haired Westerner when the little tiger had walked in this direction. But there was one thing that Chin Mo was concerned about. That is... Chapter 1434. In terms of bone structure, Westerners were naturally bigger than Easterners. When they were young, they had an advantage in terms of height. Hence, after realizing this problem, young Master Chin's beautiful peach blossom eyes couldn't help but narrow. Little William noticed this too. Hence, when he lowered his lids to look at the little vixen from the east, he was exceptionally arrogant. But, honestly speaking, little William wasn't young Master Chin's opponent at his level. It could be said that among the children of the same age, there were very few who were smarter than young Master Chin. Chin Mo just swept him a glance and didn't say anything. It was as though he didn't see this person, even though the other party was taller than him. It didn't break the nobility on young Master Chin's face. Just one action from young Master Chin would make little William envious. That action wasn't anything special. He just smiled at the little tiger. Then, naturally, little Tiger Bo hugged his waist. Momo, you must be hungry. Let's go in and eat. As she spoke, Bojo introduced him politely. This is little William. Little William, this is Momo, my little prince. She had hugged him. She even used the words my little prince. Little William felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. This wasn't the date he had imagined. However, he couldn't lose just like that. Right now, Jill was bewitched by the other party's beauty. Soon, she would find out that his style was more manly. The other party was shorter than him by a head. He didn't need to be so passive. After making up his mind, little William blew at his red hair. He wanted to show the little vixen how powerful he was. Hence, he reached out his hand and said in a very local manner, "Hey, brother, welcome." Chin Mo saw through his intentions. He smiled and wanted to reach out his hand to give the other party a return gift. Unexpectedly, little Tiger Bo, who was standing beside him, was one step faster than him. She stood in front of him and then narrowed her tiger eyes. "William, what are you doing?" Little William's heart trembled. He was afraid that Jill would beat him up again. He exclaimed, "I want to shake hands with Momo." "I know you welcome him. There's no need to shake his hand. You're so strong. What if you hurt Momo?" Little Tiger Bo said seriously. Little William, who was despised for being too strong, tried his best to shrink back a little. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Jill actually liked the weak type. Then what was the point of him practicing hitting the ball every day? None of them could compare to his face. And is he a doll? How could someone get hurt when they held hands? Although he did intend to teach the other party a lesson. But saying it like that was too hurtful, old friend. We are all children, but why is there such a big difference in the way we are treated? Little William's expression was extremely colorful. Chin Mo looked at the little tiger in front of him, and the smile on his face deepened. When little William saw that smile, he almost attacked. After all, he was young and vigorous. Oh, no, he had the spirit of a hero. When this little Eastern demon was laughing just now, he even raised his eyebrows in his direction. That was a blatant provocation. Unfortunately, Joe didn't let him shake hands, and he didn't dare to shake hands. It seemed that he could only find time to teach this little demon from the East a lesson in the future. He would go to school anyway. Chapter 1435. Little William was still thinking about this. He didn't expect the other party to send himself to him. That was because the little vixen from the east said faintly, "It's fine to shake hands." Little William straightened his body instantly. His red hair moved and his entire body emitted an aura that seemed to be saying, "Since you walked right into my trap, I'll teach you a lesson now." Chin Mo was wearing a black down jacket and a pure white scarf that was wrapped around his neck. It was as black as ink. He stretched his hand out. Little William smiled. He thought that he was very devilish and unruly. His hair was still red. The moment his fingers touched, Little William used a lot of strength. He was waiting for this person to kneel down and beg for mercy. Wait a minute. This didn't seem right. Little William's eyes widened because of the pain from his fingers. A child couldn't hide his emotions and his face was filled with astonishment. He wanted to use more strength to retaliate. But the other party didn't give him the chance. His right hand was starting to turn numb. However, just as Little William was about to bend over from the pain, the person on the other end suddenly released his hand. The person on the other end suddenly let go. Then, he curled his lips and said in a calm voice, "My hand hurts a little." "William, you're really strong." Little William, whose hand was numb, "Excuse me." "Me?" He should be the one complaining about his hand hurting. Little William was panting with rage. He wanted to pull the little vixen's collar up. On the other side, Bojo grabbed his wrist. Her big eyes were still black. She asked seriously, "William, do you want me to beat you up again?" Little William. This wasn't the date he had imagined. He wanted to tell Joe that the little vixen was acting. However, when the vixen turned his head, he seemed to be in pain. Little William was on the verge of tears. Were all the Chinese so good at acting? Joe. Little William's eyes were red. Little Tiger Bojo patted his shoulder and said angrily, "William, don't pretend to be weak. Come, let's go in. I'll give you your favorite Big Mac." Little William, why was he pretending to be weak when he cried? He was so angry. Wait a minute, when the little vixen glanced at his shoulder again, why was there a murderous look in his eyes? He, you're not going to pretend anymore. Little William took a deep breath and prepared to fight. He didn't expect the person standing in front of him to look a little lonely from his angle. His eyes were half closed as he shook his hand. If he wasn't the person involved, he would have thought that the other party was really injured. But he knew that the other party wasn't injured. He really wanted to say something. Unfortunately, Joe had already moved. "Momo, are you okay?" Chin Mo seemed to be in low spirits. He seemed to be in pain. "It won't affect the hamburger." Little William wanted to say, "Don't you have a conscience?" It didn't affect him in the first place. It would be strange if it did. Don't think I can't see through your tricks. You're just trying to confuse people. Little William turned his head helplessly. As expected, he saw Joe's distressed face. He watched helplessly as Joe pulled the little vixen's hand up and placed it by her lips. She kissed it and said in a baby tiger's voice, "Momo, I'll help you kiss it and it won't hurt anymore. The next time little William shakes hands with you, you just have to look at him. He's so strong, it'll hurt you easily." Chapter 1436. What did he mean by just taking a glance at him? "Joe, when you hit me in the past, you had to bow to me first. Why did you disappear after seeing this little vixen?" Sob, sob, sob. Little William's sadness had already flowed like a river. But in front of his love rival, he couldn't be weak. At that time, little William didn't understand what kind of opponent he had met. He could only say that the child was too young. He was still looking at Chin Mo from the corner of his eyes. Chin Mo's face was as elegant as before. But when Bojo lowered her eyes, he looked up and looked towards little William. His gaze was so cold that even the big guy, little William, felt a chill down his spine. Where did Jo bring such a person from? He looked like a devil. She seemed to have heard little William's inner cry for help. A clear English voice came from the other side. Chin. Why are you here? Chin. Little Tiger Bo was the first to react. Her round tiger eyes looked towards the direction of the voice. There were 3 little girls wearing puffy skirts and furry jackets standing there. The person who spoke was Angelia. She had blue eyes and golden hair. When the sunlight shone on her, it seemed as though there was a layer of halo. This made little Tiger Bo, who had always been obsessed with beauty, take a few more glances. She turned her head and said, Momo, is this your new friend? She looks so pretty. Chin Mo knew a certain someone's preferences. When she saw someone beautiful, her pair of tiger eyes would definitely light up. But a certain someone's preferences. It was time to change it. Chin Mo turned his body and discreetly let a certain little tiger stay behind him. At this moment, Angelia and the other 2 little girls walked over. They were still holding the ice cream cone that they had just bought. Chin, are you here to play too? When Angelia ate the ice cream, her blue eyes were very attractive. However, after studying it, little Tiger Bo realized that it wasn't as pretty as her little princess. Her little princess's eyes looked black, but under the sunlight, one could see that they were glowing with amber. MMH. There was no comparison at all. Chin Mo didn't know what Bojo was thinking about. He just looked at the little tiger in front of him. Her tiger eyes kept moving around other people's bodies. He frowned slightly. Then, he reached out and put on the hood of the little tiger jacket. He looked up at Angelia and said in a calm voice, okay. After the banquet. Angelia was used to William's lack of words. She turned her head and said in surprise, William, you know Chin. When we were in school, didn't you say that you didn't know there were Asians moving in? When William heard this, the expression on his face became even more indescribable. After all, he had just found out that this demon was the Asian who had just moved here, the one who called himself the Little Prince. He really didn't want to talk anymore, but he had to force himself to say, I'm trying to be mysterious. I see. Angelia wasn't sure what had happened, but it didn't affect her happiness when she saw Chin Mo. Even her voice was cheerful. Chin, are you going to the amusement park? It's fun inside. No, thank you. When Chin Mo said this, he didn't look at Angelia. Instead, he looked to the side and pressed down the little tiger's paw that wanted to be naughty. Chapter 1437. She shouldn't be able to see him. Besides him, who else did she want to see? Should he acknowledge another little princess? When Chin Mo thought of this, he pressed down on her wrist again so that she wouldn't have to pat someone's shoulder. How about this? You won't be able to see him. Bojo stretched her hand forward as though she was measuring the distance. Chin Mo held her hand. I'll hold your hand. Don't shake the hat. The wind is strong and it will blow on your face. Okay. Little Tiger Bo thought that her little princess was really considerate. She could even think of such a thing. William, who had seen everything from start to finish and knew what Chin Mo was like, felt a surge of emotion surging through his heart. This guy did it on purpose. What did he treat Jo as? Was she his possession? No. He had to warn this devil. But he couldn't do it in front of Jo. The big guy, William, wasn't too stupid. Jo was definitely addicted to the beauty and wouldn't be able to see the truth clearly. He had to warn her behind her back. If he wanted to do so, he needed a good place. Hence, William took the initiative and said, "Hey, Angelia, there are many people at the amusement park now. Chin and I don't want to go now. Why don't you come to the shop with us to eat something?" "That's great." When Angelia said these words, her gaze hadn't left the little figure with the hat. Was she from the East too? She must be Chin's family. Otherwise, with Chin's personality, he wouldn't be so friendly to anyone. They were all kids, so they couldn't hide their expressions and words. "Chin, is this your sister?" "No." He didn't seem to be bothered to say another word, but he was so polite that no one could find any problems with his etiquette. This was Chin Mo. Angelia was a little depressed. After all, she was still a kid. Her excitement just now was gone. But she still wanted to eat with Chin Mo. Hence, the alliance of eating burgers became 6 from 3. Chin Mo was the first to enter. But Bo Jiu was the one who ordered the food. Little Tiger Bo was very persistent about this. After all, she hadn't forgotten that she wanted to show off her wealth this time. In this aspect, Chin Mo didn't have any intention to compete. After today's incident, he understood something. No wonder Uncle Bo was like that at home. Sometimes, appearing weak wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, apart from discovering that a certain someone was a genius, Chin Mo also realized that the little tiger he was raising had some misconceptions about his identity. Little Tiger Bo didn't think that she had made a mistake. After all, when she grew up, she would become a CEO just like her mother. It had to be said. Little Tiger Bo was quite cool when she was on her own. She was queuing up to order food. Her nose bridge was exquisite and straight. Her eyelashes were long and black. Many people were looking at her, but she didn't seem to notice. Chin Mo lifted the corner of his lips when he saw this. A certain little tiger always felt that this was beautiful and that was beautiful. He might as well go home and look at himself in the mirror. None of these people could compare to her. Even children can't be absolutely quiet while waiting for their meals. Chin Mo got up and went to the washroom. If William followed them, he would not attract any attention. He was right. They had to take advantage of this opportunity to act. Chin Mo had long noticed the person behind him, but he continued to wash his hands leisurely. After washing his hands, Chin Mo turned to leave. Chapter 1438. Chin Mo threw the tissue he used to wipe his hands into the bin. His face was cold and he didn't seem to care about the big guy, Little William. This infuriated Little William. "Aren't you afraid that I'll tell Joe how you acted just now?" Seriously, did this little demon from the East have to force him to use his big move to know how powerful he was? Little William snorted. Chin Mo turned his body and his gaze turned cold. He was obviously shorter than him. But Little William actually felt that this person was scarier than his father. Because of what he said. "If you say anything, I'll break your legs." Little William. This was different from what he had imagined. Shouldn't this little demon be scared to death? Why was his aura so strong? Who exactly was threatening who? I'll go and tell her. The big guy straightened his back to show off his height. Little did he know that this was what Chin Mo disliked the most. His little tiger's friend was actually taller than him. "You can go and tell her." Chin Mo scoffed. The devilish smile that Little William saw appeared on his face again. "But, do you think Joe will believe you?" The big guy, Little William, had little experience. Such a small kid couldn't imagine that there was such a shameless person in the world. You, Chin Mo interrupted him. "I have something to tell you too. You're a boy and she's a girl. In China, there's a saying that goes, men and women shouldn't touch each other. In the future, don't do intimate actions to her." Little William wasn't convinced. You even held her hand just now. Chin Mo glanced at him slowly. Can I be the same as you? Little William. How are they different? No, he had to expose this little demon from the east. However, very quickly, little William realized that he was daydreaming. The main reason was Joe. Momo, this is really delicious. It's just a little spicy, but it's okay. Try it and I'll feed you a mouthful of Coke. It can neutralize the spiciness. Little William, Joe, wake up. No matter how good-looking that little demon from the east was, he was still a boy. Did he need you to feed him Coke? Most importantly, why did you have to kiss his face when you were feeding him? This wasn't right. Didn't you say that men and women shouldn't touch each other in China? Chin Mo seemed to have seen through little William's thoughts. At first, he lowered his lids and drank his cola. When the little tiger kissed him, he turned his head. The place that was kissed was still a little hot, but he still swept a glance in little William's direction. His entire body was filled with a cold aura. It seemed to be saying, I'm very respectful of Chinese etiquette, but I can't stop Joe from kissing me. Little William didn't want to talk anymore. He bit the ox burger in his hand. The little tiger was different. She was very happy, especially when she fed the little princess with the cola in her hands. The little princess's cold look was so cute that she couldn't help but kiss him. Right now, he was just practicing how to raise them. When the little princess really became hers, she would be able to feed the little princess every day. Chin Mo looked at the person in front of him who had big eyes and was holding a can of Coke with both hands for him to drink. I don't know what this guy is thinking, he doesn't even want to eat. He couldn't bear to watch any longer, so he took a French fry, dipped it in ketchup, and fed it to the silly little tiger. Bo Jo, on the other hand, was eating one by one, looking like she was enjoying herself. If little Tiger Bo was considered a beginner when it came to feeding people, then young Master Chin's feeding would be completely different. He took care of everything slowly. When the little tiger stained the corner of her mouth while eating the hamburger, he would even pick up a napkin and help her wipe it off. Angelia, who was sitting at the side, couldn't move her eyes away. She waited until Chin Mo stood up and went to get something else. He couldn't help but ask Bojo, hey, what exactly is your relationship? Relationship? Bojo smiled. Her eyes were big and a little mischievous. Momo is going to marry me in the future. Let's practice first. Marry you. William, who was listening on the side, couldn't sit still anymore. Joe, you don't know how that little demon spoke to me. If you knew, you, bang. Bojo placed the cola down and grabbed little William's collar with one hand. Are you looking for a beating? If you say anything bad about my Momo again, I'll pack you up and feed you to the tigers. No, it's him. Little William was still struggling. Chin Mo had already returned. He was holding a new bag of fries. He leaned forward calmly and held the little tiger's hand. Don't fight. Bojo's eyes turned round and she explained, Momo, I'm usually very gentle. Today is an exception. Little William. Gentle. You. It's a miracle that you didn't hit me today. Where is your gentleness? Even his Joe knew how to lie. It was really painful. Angelia didn't have many thoughts in her mind. She tilted her head and blurted out, Chin, is she the child betrothed that Grandpa arranged for you? You Chinese people have an ancient way of getting married. Oh my God, you have to take care of a wife from a young age. That's not fun at all. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Child betrothal. She just said that you will marry her when you grow up. Did she use the wrong grammar? Angelia felt that this was weird. Chin Mo glanced at the little tiger who had been naughty just now. Her cheeks were puffed up and she looked angry. He rolled up Bojo's sleeves and said, "She did use the wrong grammar." Angelia smiled. She knew that little prince wouldn't agree to such an ancient method. Chin Mo looked up. "She should be the one marrying me, not the other way around." All the children, Angelia paused. It was too obvious. William was so angry that he wanted to scratch the table. But there was one thing. Ever since that day, everyone knew that the new little prince from the east had a young wife who was betrothed to him. But for some reason, that young wife hadn't entered school yet. William had said that she had been living here for a short period of time. The news reached Grandpa Anne's ears through Angelia's grandfather. As the person who had betrothed his grandson, he almost didn't drink his tea. Child betrothal. My grandson said that. And, you're too dishonest. Even now, you're still not telling the truth. Old Master and thought to himself, brother, am I not telling the truth? As a grandfather, I don't even know that I have a little granddaughter-in-law. Hence, during the dinner that day. Chapter 1439. Chin Mo had expected his grandfather to ask him about this. He put down the knife and fork in his hand and said, "I'm not a little wife, but I'll take care of little Bojo in the future. Grandfather, you can go to the Bo family and ask her to come over to eat when she has no food. Their house is always empty." MH. Old Master and couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. He was going to take care of someone else's child, but he still didn't admit it. He understood his grandson. He probably didn't have that kind of relationship. Also, he was just a little old. It was probably because he liked the little tiger too much. The love between family members. At that time, Old Master and wasn't sure. When young Master Chin said he was taking care of her, he was really taking care of her. Just like that, the two little people naturally piled up into a pile. Little Tiger Bo liked to play games. Every time she came to the Inn family, she would wear a set of little tiger pajamas and climb around. Occasionally, an owl would land on the treetops. Little Tiger Bo looked at little Princess Chin, who was still playing chess with herself. She turned her round eyes and ran downstairs. She climbed up the wall. The young golden-haired butler stood below and said softly in English, "Miss Jo, hurry up and come down. It's too dangerous." Bojo didn't listen. The golden-haired butler had no choice but to use his trump card. "Young Master is here." Little Tiger Bo's ears perked up. She looked down, and when she saw that there was no one, she smiled. "Brother Butler, you are being mischievous again. Where is the little princess?" The golden-haired butler. Who was the mischievous one? Bojo was still playing around. She didn't know that someone had seen this scene. She sighed softly and reached out to pinch her eyebrows. Helplessness appeared on her cold face. Then she walked to the bottom of the tree and stood tall. "Come down." Little Tiger Bo's back stiffened. She reached out to scratch her face and looked at the owner of the voice. A month had passed. She didn't know if it was because of the milk Chin Mo drank. At this moment, he was actually as tall as Bojo. When he stood there, his aura was much stronger. "Momo, there is an owl here. I came up because it is too bored staying on the tree. I want to bring it to the ground to play with it." The golden-haired butler listened at the side and looked up at the sky. To think that such an excuse could be used. The owl expressed that it was not going to take the blame. Chin Mo was already used to the little tiger's naughtiness. He stretched out his hands and repeated with a cold expression, "Come down." Acting cute didn't work. Little Tiger Bo hugged the tree and slid down. Chin Mo hugged her. They were the same age, but when he hugged Bojo, he seemed like a big brother. It was probably due to his aura. The butler wanted to help, but he gave him a look. A young master who raised a child was really afraid of his words. Chi Nemo removed the leaf from the little tiger's head, his voice calm. Didn't I tell you not to climb trees and walls all the time? I can't control it, Bojio replied honestly. Chi Nemo paused, not saying a word. The blonde butler really wanted to know what his young master was thinking. If there was anyone who could make the young master feel helpless, it would be the ninth young mistress. Coincidentally, Miss Gio was growing her teeth these days, so half of her face was puffed up. Their young master would bring her over from the Beau family every day and watch her brush her teeth and wash her face. The blonde butler just wanted to say that even his father hadn't been so attentive when he was raising him. Was this the cultural difference between the Chinese and the West? Even raising a child was different. Very soon, when the young blonde butler got to know the other Eastern families, he understood a principle. He was definitely the only one who raised a child like his young master. For example, if he was an ordinary child, he definitely wouldn't have such a conversation. Chi Nemo, little Bojio. Bojio, MH. Chi Nemo, open your mouth. Bojio, Momo, my teeth don't hurt as much anymore. Can I not take the medicine? Chi Nemo, no. Bojio, can I kiss you after I take the medicine? Chi Nemo, MH, their young master used his looks to coax her every day. From the beginning, little Bojio, if you kiss me again, I'll throw you out through the window. Until now, he had tacitly agreed to Miss Gio doing anything intimate with him. When there was no one at the Beau family's side, Miss Gio would still stay over. Every time, young master would take care of her. As one of the parties involved, little Tiger Beau didn't agree with this point. She was obviously the one taking care of Momo. Momo was afraid of the dark and didn't like thunder. She could sleep beside him and hug him. She could also show off her strength as a boyfriend. Regarding this point, little William couldn't help but say. After hearing this, little William couldn't help but say, Joe, think carefully. This time, my daddy is filming in a tropical rainforest. Are you really not going? How could that little demon from the east be afraid of the dark? Joe must have been deceived by him again. Tropical rainforest. Little Tiger Beau lowered her head and pulled her little keyboard. Alright, I'll go on the same day and come back on the same day. Little William immediately said, it's in the suburbs. I'll be back in 4 hours. It was supposed to be 4 hours. But once they started filming, time was out of their control. As usual, Chi Nemo appeared at the Beau family's house at 4 in the afternoon. He brought little Bojio, who had to complete missions every day, home for dinner. Unexpectedly, he wasn't there. The person who was there was Mr. Beau. He seemed to be preparing to go out. He wore a black hooded jacket and a pair of leather gloves. It didn't match his usual image of a man who lived off a woman. Uncle Beau, it seemed that no matter what Mr. Beau looked like, Chi Nemo would always be able to maintain his manners. When Mr. Beau saw Chi Nemo outside the door, he held the door frame with one hand and smiled. No matter how he looked at it, he looked evil. Are you here to fetch Joe? She isn't here today. She went out to play with little William. Are you angry? Chi Nemo paused. His voice was calm. No. Oh. Mr. Beau smiled lightly and raised his eyebrows. Then, I'll let Joe play outside for a while longer. MMH, Chi Nemo replied casually. He wore a little scarf and walked back to the villa. He wanted to finish playing checkers just now. But when he saw the little keyboard on the sofa, he felt a wave of frustration. When it was almost 6:00, the In family started eating on time. Grandpa happened to be able to stay at home for a meal today. When he saw that the seat beside his grandson was empty, he asked curiously, "Where's Joe?" The young golden-haired butler tried his best to signal Grandpa with his eyes. Grandpa was still guessing the reason. His grandson, who was sitting opposite him, said, "She went out to play with someone else." Grandpa felt that he didn't see wrongly. His grandson's eyes were cold when he said this. He didn't know if it was because one person was missing. Even though there was a table full of dishes, the atmosphere at the dining table didn't lighten up. Chapter 1440. 7:00. Usually, at this hour, Chin-mo would bring Bojo out for a walk. Raising a little tiger would definitely be followed by begging. But today, Chin-mo didn't go out. Instead, he sat in the study room with a book in his hands. After flipping a few pages, he looked up and glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. 8:00. If a certain someone came back at 8:00, he wouldn't pursue the fact that she didn't listen to him. Chin-mo had never felt that time was so long. 7:00, 7:30. 8:00, 8:30. He overturned the previous settings and changed his mind. He would wait for the little tiger to come back at 9:00. 9:00. The street lights outside the window were lit up. The Christmas tree was beautiful as usual. But Chin-mo wasn't in the mood to admire it. He took the book and went upstairs. The young butler looked at the cold little face and was shocked. He hurriedly took out his phone and read a few pages of a fantasy cultivation novel. It started to rain outside. The lights in the Bo family's house were still dark. Bojo didn't know that her little princess was angry because of this. When she returned home, she saw that the lights weren't turned on. She automatically walked towards the family's house. She didn't climb over the wall because there were too many obstacles outside. She carried the mushrooms she had dug in the jungle and walked through the main door. When he saw Bojo, the young butler hurriedly asked her to go upstairs. When Chin-mo heard the sound, he was lying on the bed. He wasn't asleep, but his little face was obviously much colder than usual. Bojo turned and looked at the young butler. Her tiger eyes blinked. The young butler signaled for her to go over. Actually, he didn't need to signal for Bojo to go over. She even brought back the mushrooms she had plucked. "Momo, I brought you a present." No one replied. Bojo scratched her face and took a step forward. She sat by the bed for a while and then ran into the bathroom. When she came out again, she had changed into her little tiger pajamas. Then she poured a glass of milk and tiptoed to take the Arabian Nights book from the bookshelf. She placed it beside Chin-mo's hand. Her tiger eyes were round and black. She had always been straightforward. "Momo, are you angry?" Chin-mo didn't have any intention to care about this person. After all, a certain little tiger never listened to him. Bojo wagged her tiger tail and leaned forward, planting a kiss on his face. How was he supposed to ignore her? Chin-mo tilted his head, his voice still calm. "Is the tropical rainforest good? How did Momo know where she went?" Little Tiger Bo was puzzled for a moment. Then she said, "It's fun, but Momo isn't here." When Chin-mo heard this, the frustration in his heart subsided a little. He said nonchalantly, "Next time you go out, tell me in advance. I got the kitchen to make bean buns for you." They were all wasted. When little Tiger Bo heard this, she felt guilty and lowered her head. Chin-mo continued, "It's not that I'm not letting you play, but don't go so far next time. Alright, go to sleep." It had to be said that shrewdness was something that was definitely cultivated from a young age. Young Master Chin now knew how to support a certain someone. He could retreat in order to advance. Little Tiger Beau had already started to reflect on herself. When she glanced up, she saw Chin Mo's lonely back view. One of them wrapped his arms around her waist and swore seriously, "In the future, I will bring Momo wherever I go." Chin Mo paused for a moment before replying, "MMH." Little Tiger Beau saw that he wasn't in a good mood and felt even more guilty. Unbeknownst to her, the coldness in Chin Mo's eyes had dissipated. He sat up on the bed with something else in his eyes. Little Tiger Beau thought he was still angry with her and followed behind him. After taking a few steps, she realized that he had opened the drawer and pulled out a bag of potato chips that he had prepared for her. "Momo, don't you not eat these things?" At this moment, Chin Mo spoke in a calm voice. "I was worried that you would be hungry when you weren't around, so I didn't eat dinner." While he was saying these words, the young butler happened to come in with a plate of fruits. Every night, young master would feed Miss Jo 2 mouthfuls of fruit because Miss Jo loved to eat meat. In young master's words, he was afraid that the child's vitamin intake could not keep up, so he simply used fruits to supplement. Coincidentally, he heard this sentence and thought to himself, "Young master, you're going against your heart by saying this." Miss Jo went out with Director William. How could she be hungry? You obviously didn't have an appetite because Miss Jo went to play with other people and didn't play with you. However, as a qualified butler, even though he was young, he knew that he wouldn't say such things out loud. However, Little Tiger Beau was born with a strong sense of empathy. Her round eyes looked out of the window. It was raining outside. When she came back just now, there was even thunder. These were the things that the little princess hated the most. Little Tiger Beau knew that the family ate their meals on time. The little princess didn't even eat dinner because of her. Yet, she played outside for the entire day. Little Tiger Beau felt completely guilty. She stretched out her 2 little paws and hugged Chin Mo from behind. Her tail was still wagging. "Momo, I was wrong." Seeing this, Chin Mo felt that it was about time and directly said what was on his mind. "Little Bojo, if you want to go out and play with other people, don't play with me anymore, understand?" "I understand. I will be obedient in the future." Little Tiger Beau wagged her tail again and said very seriously. Chin Mo glanced over and curled her hair with his fingers. "I will forgive you this time." Little Tiger Beau nodded. In order to show that she was very obedient, she didn't need Chin Mo to rush her. She took a shower in advance and came out smelling good. She lay at the side and listened to Chin Mo read her a bedtime story with her big tiger eyes. It had to be said. Young Master Chin's method was very effective. Because the next day, when little William carried the basketball over again, Little Tiger Beau rejected him decisively. Little Tiger Beau rejected him decisively. "I'm not going." Little William's little face was originally red. He was filled with anticipation for today's date on the basketball court. After all, he had already done his research on the little demon from the east. The other party didn't like this kind of sweaty exercise. Hence, it was impossible for him to go out with Jo. Then, he would be able to be alone with Jo again. He didn't expect this. Didn't we agree? Little William's red hair drooped. Bojo hugged the little keyboard in her hands and said seriously, "Yesterday, I left Momo at home alone. He didn't even eat. Also, he is afraid of the dark. I have to accompany him." Afraid of the dark. That little demon from the east. How was that possible? No way. He had to expose him today. Chin wouldn't be afraid, just as little William was about to go all out. The person he wanted to expose appeared. He was wearing a small black suit and his hair was styled. He looked like a real little prince. He glanced at little William. There was a sense of oppression amidst his nobility. Little William subconsciously gulped a few times and swallowed his words back. That wasn't right. What was he afraid of? Even if this little demon had grown taller, he still wasn't as strong as him. He didn't need to be afraid at all. But he didn't know why. When little William saw Chin Mo, he would remember the day at the burger shop. The way this little demon had looked behind him. It made people want to run away after seeing him. Thinking about it carefully, only Joe was so close to him. Although Angelia and the others called this little demon Prince, it could be seen that they were a little afraid when they faced this little demon. Of course, Chin Mo noticed the red-haired William's gaze. Grandpa said that he had to be more polite to foreigners. This would show the thousands of years of etiquette in China. Indeed, Chin Mo wasn't impolite to others. But there was one thing. A certain red-haired man always wanted to abduct the little tiger he was raising when he wasn't around. This debt had to be settled. Little William looked at that person and narrowed his eyes. He said calmly, "What can I do?" Afraid of the dark. Little William braced himself. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well finish his sentence. "You're already so old and you're still a boy. Do you think it's possible for you to be afraid of the dark?" It was a pity that little William had underestimated young Master Chin's shamelessness. Everyone has fear. When Chin Mo said this, he seemed a little lonely. As a boy, I don't want to be afraid of the dark. I'll be laughed at. But I have no choice. Little William. Wait a minute, how could there be such a thing? The young butler, who had been listening to the entire process, raised his head and looked at the ceiling. He would never tell anyone that his young master dared to go to the basement alone at night. Every time he watched a horror movie, he treated it as pseudoscience. He was even more disdainful of ghosts and demons than adults. So, he was definitely pretending to be afraid of the dark. But he was acting so shamelessly. Probably only his young master could do that. After all, it was effective. Because he had heard Miss Jo's words. "Momo, don't be afraid. I'll accompany you in the future. William probably wants to go out and play with you. He has many children accompanying him. Moreover, he's so strong. He's not afraid at all." Little William felt his heart hurt. Just like that. From then on, little Tiger Bo never went out alone with anyone again. It was because of Chin Mo. Of course, it was also because of her toothache. Speaking of this, little Tiger Bo's appetite decreased because of her toothache. Chin Mo was really anxious. Every day, he would coax her to eat during dinner. In the morning, when she woke up to brush her teeth, he would ask little Tiger Bo to stand beside him and he would brush her teeth for her. Thus, in these 10 days, Li Tianlan's eyes lit up. Grandpa would always see the scene of his grandson raising a child in the morning. The young golden-haired butler didn't mention the difference in education between China and China anymore. He basically understood that his young master was raising Miss Jo like a porcelain doll. It wasn't just the details of life. There was also the time when his young master was reading. Miss Jo would play with her little keyboard at the side. How good were these two children? It could be explained with one point. In the past, other than a bed, a bookshelf, and a wardrobe, nothing else could be found in his young master's room. Ever since he met Miss Jo. Snacks, a couch, a small toolbox, and 2 laptops. In his young master's words, these were all Miss Jo's toys. But the young butler couldn't understand after thinking for a long time. How did a toolbox become a toy? Of course, there were times when it was quiet. 10 in the morning. The 2 children would be in the study room. Every time it was at this time, time would always pass very slowly. Chin Mo wore a pure white sweater. One of his hands was pressed against the rice paper on the wooden table. His other hand was separated by little Tiger Bo's hand. He held a brush and taught someone how to read, stroke by stroke. The sunlight shone in and shone on the two children's bodies. The young butler watched from the side. His eyes were filled with amazement. He always knew that his young master was good-looking. But he was such a gentle young master. This was probably the only time he would see it. Rather than saying that his young master looked like a prince with British blood, it would be better to say that he looked like a young master from an ancient family. His every move was like a splash of ink. It was naturally noble. If it was just him, people might not be unable to shift their gazes away. However, little Tiger Beau was standing in front of him. They were children of the same age. The taller one was teaching the shorter one how to write. Little Tiger Beau's tail was wagging. The tip of her nose was stained with ink. It seemed to have been purposely dotted there. She was just short of drawing 3 whiskers. She looked very serious, as though she was completing a big task. He probably found it interesting to see her like this. His young master would always turn his gaze subconsciously. The corners of his lips would curl up slightly. At that moment, the young golden-haired butler thought of a poem he had learned in the vast Eastern literature. That's right. Ancient fantasy cultivation. Wastrel's counterattack against ancient web novels. This was the vast Eastern literature he thought of. There was a line in the poem that went like this. My husband came riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with green plums. This was probably the purest form of emotion. But compared to normal childhood sweethearts, there was a difference between this pair. It could be said that the knowledge and part of Bogio's lifestyle habits were learned from Chin Imo. He was the one who taught her the first words she wrote. He was also the one who taught her the first ancient poem she memorized. He was even the first one to tell her a bedtime story. He coaxed her to sleep, ate her, and drank her medicine. However, Bogio was still mischievous. After all, writing calligraphy was just a way for her to admire the little princess's beauty from a close distance. Momo, your eyelashes are so long. They are even longer than mine. This was a certain someone who couldn't control herself after writing these 4 words. Her hand had already reached over and touched the cold and handsome little face in front of her. Chin Imo paused. He knew that he couldn't change her habit of touching him. He didn't force her. He wrapped a scarf around her neck and brought the little tiger out of the door. He had to take a breather at an appropriate time. It was brought forward today. After all, a certain someone had been very obedient for the past half a month. But very quickly, this breather was interrupted. Chapter 1441. After seeing the unreliable behavior of a certain adult, Chin Imo calmly brought little Tiger Beau towards him. Chin Imo pulled little Tiger Beau towards him without a change in expression. Then, he reached out and caressed her head. Mr. Beau was amused by this scene. This little rascal from the Chin family really wanted to raise a child for him. Mr. Beau raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he bent down and carried his Lord Joe up. All right, I'm afraid you and your little princess will have to meet again in the afternoon. Follow me out. Where are we going? Little Tiger Beau asked. Then, she added, Dad, you appeared at the wrong time. Mr. Beau smiled and placed her on the motorcycle. I'm really sorry. But Lord Joe, did you forget what day of the week it is today? Little Tiger Beau tilted her head. Friday. There would always be some messy programs in her father's university. Last time, it was a debate. This time, she didn't know what it was. But her father would occasionally participate in it so that her mother would appear in school to cheer for him. Little Tiger Beau knew why her father came to find her. He wanted her to act cute. But she couldn't bear to leave her Momo. Chin Imo saw that the little tiger on the motorcycle kept looking at him. Also, he thought that she was just taking a walk. She didn't even wear a hat. The more he looked at her, the deeper his frown became. He took the scarf off his neck and wrapped it around little Tiger Bo like a brother. His voice was still calm. Be obedient when you go out with Uncle Bo. Don't be naughty all the time. Don't take off your scarf, understand? MMH. Little Tiger Bo nodded heavily. Chi Nemo turned and placed the mint candy in his hand into little Tiger Bo's pocket. Then he looked up and said to a certain adult, Uncle Bo, you have to watch over her. She likes to eat candies but her teeth haven't fully recovered. She can't eat too much. This is today's amount. Don't buy more for her. Uncle Bo bought too much the last time. After she finished eating, she didn't sleep much. The experienced big kid, Mr. Bo, smiled when he heard this. Was this little brat reminding him? After all, he was indeed weak in raising Lord Joe. But if the little brat from the Chin family said this, he should be the one to say it. Lord Joe belonged to his family. If I don't go to the candy store this time, I won't have the chance to buy it for her. Don't worry. As Mr. Bo spoke, he took a step forward and rode on the bike. He leaned against the bike and buckled his helmet. He didn't try to hide his handsomeness anymore. When the corners of his clothes fluttered in the wind, there was a child sitting behind the bike. This could be said to be very pleasing to the eye. Chi Nemo watched as the motorcycle moved further and further away. When he couldn't see it anymore, he retracted his gaze. When the young butler heard that Mr. Bo had taken Miss Jo away, he had a premonition that his young master's appetite wouldn't be so good today. As expected, they didn't even let the kitchen prepare dessert. This time, it wasn't because he was in a bad mood. However, since a certain someone wasn't around, it was meaningless for him to eat these things alone. Fortunately, Grandpa said that there would be a gathering in a while and wanted to take him out. Chi Nemo finally found something to do. Whenever he attended a business gathering with Grandpa, Chi Nemo would dress like a little prince. This was something that little William couldn't compare to. Hence, even if the two of them met, little William could only be angry in his heart and didn't dare to say anything. After all, it was too deceptive. Moreover, Jo had specially reminded him that if he met her little princess at the gathering, he should protect him well. After all, her little princess was too good-looking. She was afraid that he would be in danger. When little William heard this, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. In the end, there was only one sentence left. His daddy was lying to him. Was he saying that girls would like him because he was tall and strong? Wrong. As long as he was good-looking, nothing else was important, okay? In addition, this good-looking person was always acting. He didn't give anyone a way out. All the children who came for the gathering were bewitched by him. This should be the reason why the little vixen came here. It was simply too infuriating. Was he not going to make any friends today? Little William looked at the cold back view that was surrounded by people. When other children spoke, he would occasionally reply with one or two sentences. He really looked like an iceberg. He must have known that this style was popular now, so he deliberately acted like this. When he was in front of Jo, he wasn't like this at all. He wasn't so difficult to get close to. Little William was really wrong about this matter. The real Chi Nemo was like this. He was polite and cold to everyone. Only a certain little tiger. It would make him patiently coax her, and it would make him feel like a peer, happy and unhappy at the same time. However, she was too young. At that time, they didn't understand what kind of feelings they had. The time for the gathering continued to extend. It lasted until 11 p.m. before it was finally over. At the start, Chi Nemo didn't care. After all, it wasn't considered late in the country. He was 5 or 6 years old. At this time, he was already sleepy. When he alighted from the car, Chin Mo's black eyes were still a little dazed. When he saw the little tiger sitting in front of his house, he instantly woke up. Instinctively, he opened his jacket and wrapped the little tiger in it. "Why are you here?" "I'm waiting for Momo." Little Tiger Bo tapped her chin on his shoulder. When she saw him, even her round tiger eyes started to stare blankly. Her voice became even more sleepy. "I thought Momo would come back in a while. I didn't expect him to take so long. I didn't expect him to." Gradually, Little Tiger Bo closed her eyes. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she fell asleep in seconds. Soon, Chin Mo couldn't hear the person in his arms talking anymore. He could only hear her soft breathing. Chin Mo reached out and touched the person's ear. It was cold. He carried the person in his arms. As the person was about the same size as him, Chin Mo couldn't help but sway slightly when he walked. However, when the driver wanted to reach out, he avoided him. The young butler wasn't around. Old Master An was a little surprised to see such a remorseful expression on his grandson's face. From that day onwards, no matter what happened, Chin Mo would always come back before 9 p.m. It was the same even if he attended a business gathering. After all, he had a child to take care of. Right now, the little tiger in his arms was cold. It must be especially cold when she sat outside. The next day, Chin Mo found an extra butler. This butler was in charge of opening the door for the little tiger. Chin Mo even made an extra key and placed it in Little Tiger Bo's pocket. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the two children were inseparable. Because this wasn't enough. Sometimes, when Chin Mo went out, he would bring the little tiger with him. He was like a big brother taking care of the child the entire time. Every time people saw these two, they would compare their grandchildren with each other. The more they compared, the more obvious the difference was. From then on, even Angelia and the group of little girls understood that they didn't have a chance. Almost everyone in the business circle knew that the heir of the group and the child who was betrothed when they were young were so close that Chin Mo rolled up the child's sleeves when he ate. Needless to say, when the child's shoelaces were untied, Chin Mo would even squat down and tie the child's shoelaces. Then, he would rub the little tiger's head. Seeing this scene, many couples who already had a boy wanted a little girl. The scene of a big brother doting on the child was too heartwarming. It was just a few things outsiders didn't know. For example, during the 2 days before the new year, Chin Mo received a call from his father. The content was the same. There were many missions in the military, so he might not be able to go home to celebrate the new year with him. The biggest festival in China was the New Year. This was a day for family reunions. However, Chin Mo had never enjoyed such a reunion. In the military courtyard, it was his grandfather who accompanied him for the new year. After his grandfather retired, it was obvious that his father had to take the lead. As for his mother, her career was getting further and further away and she couldn't find time. Logically speaking, Chin Mo was used to it. However, this year, he really wanted to introduce the little tiger he raised to his family. Moreover, he hadn't seen his parents for a long time. He felt so disappointed. After all, his age was there. No matter how mature he was still a child. Chin Mo wasn't someone who would show his emotions. Hence, Grandpa didn't notice anything. Coincidentally, it was the end of the year and something happened at the branch company that he needed to deal with. He hurriedly got into the car and reminded the servants to take good care of his grandson. However, Grandpa didn't understand that Chin Mo didn't need to be taken care of. He needed company. Fortunately, with the butler around, he would be able to know his grandson's movements. He heard that his grandson hadn't come down ever since he left. Grandpa anxiously called the Bo family. Little Tiger Bo picked up the phone. "Hello, Grandpa," and Grandpa softened his tone. "It's me, Joe. Grandpa is on a business trip and isn't home today. There's no one at home. After you're done, can you help me visit your brother Mo? I'll go over now." When little Tiger Bo heard that her little princess was the only one left in the family, she didn't even bother with her mission. She hugged her little keyboard and put on her down jacket. Then, she walked over. She had already decided to let Momo have a taste of her cooking. Momo might even agree to let her raise him. That would be great. With that thought in mind, Bojo pushed open the door to the second floor. Mo thought it was the butler. He laid on the bed and pulled the blanket up. He covered his face and said calmly, "Get out." Bojo heard those two words. There wasn't any warmth in her. She placed the little keyboard down and pounced on the bed. She hugged the bulging figure through the blanket. "Momo, it's me." Mo paused. He didn't expect the little tiger to come in. After all, she should still be doing her mission at this time. Also, he could tell that Mr. Bo had been assigning more tasks to her recently. Chapter 1442. Mo had just lifted his lids. The little tiger's hand was already pressed on his forehead. Then, she frowned heavily. She stopped wagging her tail and ran downstairs. She carried a small medicine box and ran back. She was probably too naughty. Compared to Mo, the little tiger always had injuries of various sizes on her body. Of course, there weren't any heavy injuries. Usually, it was because she was climbing a wall and got scratched on her face and hands. Sometimes, she would have a toothache and a bloated stomach. These were problems that children often encountered. Little Tiger Bo was so familiar with the family's medicine box because every time she was sick or injured, Mo would be the one feeding her medicine. At first, Mo didn't know what the little tiger was going to do. He felt a little dizzy. He swayed and wanted to stand up to look for her. But when he saw the little tiger carrying the medicine box, his fingers paused. Bojo took the medicine box on the first trip. On the second trip, she carried a big pot of hot water. She lowered her head and poured the cold medicine into Mo's mouth seriously. Then, she broke a few pieces of medicine and looked at Mo with her dark eyes. She wanted him to eat medicine. This was the first time. He was being taken care of. Mo watched as the little tiger ran up and down. In the end, she took a book and flipped a few pages before saying, "Momo, I don't know how to tell bedtime stories. Why don't I make one for you?" "Mmh." Mo felt that it was rare to see someone not being naughty. She even knew how to tell him a bedtime story. He couldn't help but smile. Seeing this, little Tiger Bo lowered her eyes and kissed him on the cheek. Mo didn't guard himself. He didn't know if it was because of the cold or something else, but the back of his ears turned red. When he thought about it, it was a certain little tiger who began to make up a story. The Bo family was familiar with Buddhism and the Bible. These were two different beliefs. But it wasn't hard to tell from the little tiger's words. Hence, she told him a story. A long time ago, there was a person who cultivated the demonic path and a person who cultivated the righteous path. The person who cultivated the demonic path was treated as an unforgivable sin and fell into the underworld. Those who cultivated the righteous Tao could ascend to the exalted immortal realm and become undying and indestructible. However, no one knew that the two of them actually knew each other, and they were on very good terms. They met when they were 8 years old, under the Kunlun ice mountain, and worshipped the same celestial master. It was just that the one who cultivated the demonic path was naughty and mischievous, and always wanted to cause trouble. All the immortal herbs he obtained were given to the one who cultivated the celestial path. This was because the cultivation of the celestial path required one to expend vital energy, and to comprehend great enlightenment. Only then would one be able to love all living things. Originally, the two of them were equally talented, but one day, the child who cultivated the demonic path committed a great taboo. In order to save his senior martial brother who cultivated the celestial path, he committed the sin of killing and was imprisoned in the Kunlun mountain range for 3 years. At that time, his senior apprentice brother went to accompany him every day in exchange for bringing him immortal herbs. However, he was rejected. That person who cultivated the demonic path had said, "I can't do nothing when I see you in harm's way. I can't love all living beings." It was probably because of this one sentence that he said that destroyed all possibilities of him becoming an immortal. Ever since then, he fell to the ground and became a demon. He walked through the human world, experienced the joys and sorrows of partings and reunions, saw all the streets and alleys, and slept in the tea-house as a dissolute young master. He only remembered the person who disciplined him the moment they met at the foot of the Kunlun mountain. However, the two of them could no longer meet, or wherever he was, he would try his best not to appear. However, many people did not understand that those who cultivated the demonic path were not necessarily bad, and those who cultivated the celestial path were not necessarily good. When many people did something wrong, not only did they not dare to admit it, they would also push the blame. This was human nature. There was never a distinction between the demonic path and the celestial path, because the person who cultivated the demonic path was very flamboyant, and even had many secrets about some people. The more guilty a person was, the more they would want to bite the other person first. They would never remember what they had done, and would only talk about how the person who cultivated the demonic path was like. First, they would smear their reputation, and then they would set a trap. They received news that the person who cultivated the demonic path would go through a tribulation every 10 years, so they used this opportunity to attract 10,000 bolts of lightning. Ever since the demon saint was destroyed, everyone thought that his soul would be completely gone. Unexpectedly, he actually fell into the yellow springs, leaving behind a wisp of his soul. They said that the person who destroyed him was not these people who cultivated the righteous path, but because he refused to obey the heavenly mandate. However, on this day, there was also a person who refused to obey the heavenly mandate. He used his immortal bones, flesh, and blood in exchange for a change of fate. The change was not his, but someone else, the person who should have ended here. Buddha asked him if he would regret turning from an immortal into a being that didn't know what was good or bad. He replied that he didn't regret it. The person he missed the most was when he had met him when he was 8 years old. Now, his luck was full, and he could take all of it. Buddha shook his head. This was a high immortal, the person with the most spiritual energy. How could he end up like this? He didn't agree, and only said that this was the heavenly mandate. He laughed, and the white sword in his hand turned into a sword shadow. With blood as a guide, he cleared out hell, and caused the 3 realms to shake. That night, there were no ghosts on the 800-mile road to the Yellow Springs. There were only dazzling and blooming mandalas. The road that was built seemed to be calling someone home. When Guanyin saw this, she shed a tear. The bell of Lane Temple rose and fell, and Buddha only chanted Amitabha. With that, little Tiger Bo tilted her head, looking as though she was waiting for a compliment. Momo, is this story good? You should continue making it up. Chi Nemo glanced sideways at her. Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail. Let me think about it. I'll tell you tomorrow. Be good and sleep first. That way, you will get better. Chi Nemo looked at the little face that was very close to him. He pinched it with his fingers. Silly, don't worry. Ha! Little Tiger Bo blinked in confusion. Chi Mo's drug took effect. When the little person was about to close her eyes, her voice floated over. Even if we are different after we grow up, I won't let anyone hurt you. Little Tiger Bo heard this sentence. Her pair of tiger eyes lit up slightly. In reality, Little Tiger Bo more or less understood that ordinary people wouldn't be able to accept what she was going to do in the future. She had watched so many cartoons and movies. They all said that people from different worlds would never be together. She had asked Grandpa before. The little princess's family was a policeman. No, that wasn't right. It should be the kind that was more powerful than the police. Anyway, they were specially here to catch her. She didn't want the person who came to catch her to be Momo. She didn't want Momo to hate her after knowing what she did for a living. Hence, even the story she made up revealed a kind of desire. What made her happy was what he said. Chapter 1443. When the two of them were together, time would always pass especially quickly. Little Tiger Bo leaned against Chin Mo's head to sleep. When she woke up, it was already late at night. Only then did she remember that people who were sick had to eat more. There was no one at home, so Little Tiger Bo volunteered to cook a bowl of noodles. She didn't know if it was because the color was too heavy or because of the seasoning. After Chin Mo ate it, he didn't recover. He even got enteritis. Later, the doctor explained the reason. When he had a cold, his digestive system was weak. Moreover, the seasoning of the instant noodles was too greasy. It wasn't strange for this to happen. Little Tiger Bo felt very guilty. She climbed the wall at night and asked Chin Mo to forgive her. At that time, Chin Mo didn't have any strength at all. He simply said, "Come up." When the little tiger climbed up, he reached out and hugged her. She was soft and fluffy, causing his lips to lift subconsciously. "Little Bojo, are you an idiot?" "No," Little Tiger Bo said seriously. Little Tiger Bo said seriously, "But Momo, this is the first time you took the initiative to hug me. Should I celebrate? Do you want me to sell you?" Chin Mo glanced at her. "I'm very expensive. I will work hard to earn money." Little Tiger Bo clenched her small fists. Chin Mo held her fists. "When you are 18, I will tell you if I will sell you or not." 18. Little Tiger Bo counted with her fingers. There was still a long time. "Can't you agree now?" Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. "No." "All right, 18. I will definitely be taller by then. I will be like my mother and wear a suit to look for you." The more Bojo spoke, the more comfortable she felt. Chin Mo frowned. "Suit? Shouldn't you wear a skirt?" "No, the overbearing CEOs in the movies all wear suits." Little Tiger Bo yawned as she spoke. Her small head rested on Chin Mo's shoulder like a real little tiger. She wagged her tail twice. "Momo, I'm sleepy." She was asking Chin Mo to coax her. Some habits were probably formed through nurturing. Before she knew Chin Mo, Bojo would never let anyone coax her to sleep. But now that she was listless, she would lean her little head on Chin Mo's shoulder. Chin Mo would pat her back from time to time and say something in a cold and pleasant voice. It was nothing more than asking her to sleep. There were only a few days left before the spring festival. No matter what, Old Master had to make a trip back to China, and so did Chin Mo. When Little Tiger Bo heard this news, she went into Chin Mo's little panda luggage. "Momo, I'll be your checked luggage. Bring me along." It wasn't that he hadn't thought of bringing a certain little tiger along with him. Chin Mo went to ask, but the lazy Mr. Bo didn't agree. He smiled faintly and said, "No." It was also that day that Chin Mo smelled the scent of blood on this adult. Even though he was wearing a trench coat, the scent was faintly discernible. But before Auntie Bo came back, he entered the bathroom. Chin Mo was a child who could keep things in his heart. That was probably what people with high IQ were like. He left a medicine box at the Bo family's house and didn't say anything. But Chin Mo didn't feel good about not being able to bring his little tiger along. Especially when he was about to get into the car, he saw a certain someone's round tiger eyes. When I'm not around, listen to Uncle Bo, don't climb the wall all the time. You can't eat too much of the candy I give you. If you're hungry, use the key I gave you to enter the house. I've stuffed the snacks in the cupboard full. There are ready-made canned beef. Eat less instant noodles. You have my house number. Call me if you need anything. Don't be mischievous. Chin Mo couldn't help but pinch her face. I'll be back soon. Little Tiger Bo hugged her little keyboard and nodded. She counted the time in her heart. 3 days wasn't too long. It was within his acceptable range. Even so, when the bus was about to leave, little Tiger Bo didn't let go of Chin Mo's sleeve. But what stunned Grandpa wasn't little Tiger Bo's actions. It was because his grandson obviously didn't want to leave. This was a completely different attitude from when he first arrived at this place. The most surprising thing was, when the car started to move, his grandson started to be absent-minded. From boarding the plane to taking off and landing, his grandson's face did not show any trace of a smile again. It wasn't until he picked up his phone and made an overseas call that his face warmed up a little. At that time, WeChat didn't exist. It wasn't as convenient as it was now. He had to use a computer to make a video call. But it was nearing the new year. Even children were busy. Moreover, there was a time difference between the two of them. The moment Chin Mo returned to the military courtyard, he was surrounded by children. He didn't have time to make a call. When he finished visiting his relatives and picked up his phone, he realized that the time wasn't right. Most importantly, he had originally planned to return after New Year's Eve. Because Madam An suddenly had an important matter to deal with. Therefore, the deadline to return was lengthened. Fortunately, Chin Mo was free. He could coordinate with a certain little tiger's time to make a call. But no one picked up the call. Bo Jo wasn't at home. Instead, she followed Mr. Bo to the university. This time, she wasn't acting cute. Although it looked like it. Bo Jo was still wearing her little old Axe pajamas. But this wasn't Mr. Bo's motive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought his daughter to school at such a time. Something happened in the hacker world. This wasn't the first time. It had never been peaceful. This was the life he chose. But in terms of privacy, there had never been such a big oversight like this time. Some people would know him sooner or later. In the past, Mr. Bo wasn't worried about these things. But it was different now. The one lying under his desk and the woman in the opposite building were his lifeline. They were all his lifeline. Although he had already sent out a call and was waiting for the butler to come. But this also meant that Joe wouldn't have a choice anymore. Mr. Bo looked up and glanced at the English words on the blackboard. He supported his chin with one hand and asked casually, "Joe, do you like what we are doing now?" Little Tiger Bo leaned against the corner of the desk. She didn't say anything. Instead, she used the small keyboard to type 3 words over. Mr. Bo tilted his head. His gaze deepened. That's good. The most important thing now was to hide Joe well. As for him, he would distract the attention of those people. He couldn't really let them find anything. He had to think carefully about moving back to the castle. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.